playing as Tathagata in Marvel, I suppressed Thanos for 500 years. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 26 Hong Kong is in trouble, Tony goes to Hong Kong. Chapter 26 Hong Kong is in trouble, Tony goes to Hong Kong. 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster. Chapter 26 Hong Kong is in trouble, Tony goes to Hong Kong. Space technology, Tony was very interested. How great would it be if he could master it? And it can be used not only on Earth, but also in the exploration of the universe. This is definitely a good thing. However, even a person like Nick came to seek his help, which means that this cosmic cube is not so easy to get back. After all, the Mandarin is a dangerous person, who can use magic and has a scientific mind. Tony pondered for a moment. He was hesitant. But then he thought, this Mandarin is going to Hong Kong, and Hong Kong is a Chinese place, and then it might be involved with Sun Wukong. And the origin of Sun Wukong's power interested him even more than the cosmic cube. So, after some hesitation, Tony decided to go to Hong Kong. Jarvis, check the surveillance and gamma radiation data on recent planes and ships bound for Hong Kong from the US, and look for the Mandarin, Tony ordered. According to the information Nick provided, the Tesseract is emitting gamma rays. Since the Mandarin was smuggling it across the border, he had no shielding equipment. By searching this way, they could find the Mandarin. Yes, sir, Jarvis replied. Immediately, it began to execute. Tony's thoughts were clear, analyzing the Mandarin's situation. He went to such great lengths to steal the Tesseract, probably for the special power it holds. However, a dangerous man like him wouldn't do anything good with such power. We must stop him immediately. Tony had a bad feeling. He then touched the reactor on his chest and said, at this point, the power of this reactor is still too low. We need to replace it with a higher powered one. Tony had initially felt a sense of pride and elation at being able to develop such a small reactor. But after watching the video of Sun Wukong, he began to feel that the power of his chest reactor was too weak. It wasn't even powerful enough to withstand a single blow from the other side. We need to upgrade the reactor, Tony muttered, stroking the glowing reactor. Elsewhere, in the garden, a flash of golden light flashed, and Lin Feng appeared in the courtyard. He then removed his role as Tathagata Buda. His divine aura withered, gradually returning to his true self. Lin Feng's lips curled up in a smile. This trip to the Ministry of State Security had achieved its purpose. The appearance of Tathagata Buda had completely confirmed what he had said in the lecture. Next up is Loki leading the Chitauri army to attack Earth, right? Lin Feng analyzed. I remember the battle was supposed to take place in New York. However, Thor is now in China, and my character, Sun Wukong, also thwarted Loki's plan. He must hate both Sun Wukong and Thor to the core. So, he'll probably target the Chitauri army to Chinese city, making it easier to deal with us first. Lin Feng pondered this. But soon, he stopped thinking about it. He'd know where it was when the time came. For now, he should finish Sun Wukong's profile. Lin Feng was currently compiling his biography. After all, his current job was to research the events of that ancient time, but for him, this was a surprisingly easy task. The scene shifted. Inside an ancient palace, a hairless figure dressed in yellow gazed into the starry sky. It was none other than the Ancient One. His skin was very pale, an eerie pallor. He gazed at the starry sky, a thoughtful expression on his face, his thoughts unclear. Suddenly, he sensed something and glanced eastward, towards the Xiangjiang temple. There seems to be danger there. The Ancient One's face grew solemn. As Earth's supreme sorcerer, he had a responsibility to protect the planet. Without hesitation, he activated the Eye of Agamotto, hoping to predict the future and see what would happen. However, he saw nothing, only darkness. He suddenly opened his eyes, sweat beading on his forehead. I can't see. What's going on? The Ancient One was surprised, a reaction he rarely experienced. This shouldn't be happening. Could it be related to Sun Wukong appearing in China? Ancient One pondered. When Sun Wukong appeared, he had used the Eye of Agamotto to see where he came from, but he could see nothing. And now it was happening again. Ancient One pondered for a moment, convinced that this was possible. Without hesitation, He turned and walked into the palace, addressing a somewhat portly man. Wang, the Xiangjiang temple's in danger. We must go. Regardless of the situation, he had to go. Wang was Kamartaj's librarian, responsible for selecting mages. He was also Ancient One's right-hand man. At Ancient One's call, he immediately prepared to depart. Together, the two of them opened the multidimensional portal and entered the mezzanine realm, heading straight for Xiangjiang. Meanwhile, Tony was conducting experiments to improve the reactor and increase its power. Use the particle channel to concentrate the fission particles, increasing the number of fissions. Then, enhance the neutron concentration of the palladium metal and improve energy transmission efficiency. While this will cause neutron damage, there's no other way now. Let's try it out first and see how it works, he muttered to himself. Tony knew this thing was embedded in his body. While this neutron damage wouldn't cause significant damage, some problems would inevitably arise. He just didn't know what those problems were yet. However, he needed to fight a formidable enemy, so he had to increase his reaction rate and energy conversion to enhance his strength. But just then, Jarvis' voice suddenly rang out. Sir, I've detected an anomaly in gamma rays on a cruise ship bound from the United States to Hong Kong, China. It's due to arrive at the Hong Kong port in 10 minutes at most. Hearing this, Tony knew even more that time was running out. Once the cruise ship docked, the Mandarin would undoubtedly begin his research on the Tesseract, and who knew what would happen then. So, he had to act quickly to stop the Mandarin. He picked up the reactor he had just built. Jarvis' voice sounded a warning. Sir, this new type of reactor has not been tested beforehand and may be harmful to the body. It is recommended to test it first. It's okay, let's do the test like this. Tony removed the original reactor on his chest and installed the new one. Suddenly, the reactor began to operate, emitting a dazzling white light. At the same time, an indescribable feeling spread from his chest. His body was trembling and a little uncomfortable. And there was a bitter feeling in his mouth. Oh, my mouth is so bitter, Tony couldn't help but say. A moment later, a red and handsome steel armor flew into the sky, flying towards the direction of Hong Kong, China at a high speed. Chapter 27, Mandarin arrives in Hong Kong. Chapter 27, The Mandarin arrives in Hong Kong, 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster. Chapter 27, The Mandarin arrives in Hong Kong. Team A, ambush here. Team B, ambush here. Team C, stand by here. If anything unexpected happens, rush over to support immediately. We must not let the Mandarin and his terrorist group escape. Chen Haitian has already arrived in Hong Kong City. He has received intelligence from his superiors that the Mandarin and his terrorist group are likely arriving in Hong Kong City by cruise ship. Therefore, they are currently preparing for battle at Hong Kong City's port. Chen Haitian currently has no idea how serious the ensuing trouble will be. Whoa. For safety, the Mandarin's group split up and disembarked, each following the crowd and awaiting the order to regroup. At that moment, a middle-aged man wearing a sun hat, casual clothes, and carrying a black backpack followed the crowd forward. It was the Mandarin. The Mandarin was unaware that the Chinese had already deployed forces to capture him. He had simply split up his group for safety, even disguising himself. The Mandarin had a base in Hong Kong, and someone was waiting outside the harbor, and he was about to meet them. Once we're safe, I'll begin preparing for my master's mission, the Mandarin thought. He was currently under Loki's control, and Loki had tasked him with using the Tesseract to open a dimensional portal, allowing Thanos' Chitauri army to descend upon Earth. However, he didn't know that he was already being targeted by Chinese officials. Report. The Mandarin has been spotted, a subordinate reported. Oh, where's he? Chen Haitian's eyes lit up, and he quickly approached and asked. Look, Chief. That's him, a subordinate pointed to the results on the computer. It was surveillance footage. Among them was a foreigner wearing a sun hood and carrying a black backpack. Facial analysis showed a 75% resemblance to the Mandarin. Chen Haitian, observing the surveillance footage, immediately realized the man was wearing makeup, attempting to sneak into Hong Kong City. He immediately picked up the intercom and announced, "Attention, all teams. The Mandarin has disembarked. Move." The Mandarin continued walking. But as he walked, he suddenly realized something was amiss. Where were the people around him? He glanced around. No one was around, as if they had vanished into thin air. Not only that, even the sound was gone. There had been a loud noise coming from the cruise ship just now. Puzzled, the Mandarin suddenly realized what was happening. He quickly turned around, about to return to the port. But as he turned, he saw a man in a suit approaching. The Mandarin frowned, staring intently, unsure of his intentions. The man in the suit was Chen Haitian. Chen Haitian stopped and addressed the Mandarin in front of him. Without further ado, he got straight to the point. Mandarin, you've been surrounded by the Chinese military. Give up all resistance and surrender. Hand over the stolen goods you've stolen from SHIELD and you'll be treated leniently. Upon hearing this, the Mandarin raised his lip and said, "What if I don't surrender? Then there's only one way to go," Chen Haitian scolded. With a wave of his hand, armed soldiers appeared from all directions, collectively aiming at the Mandarin. Chen Haitian's face was serious. He had read the Mandarin's profile and knew he was an extremely dangerous individual. Therefore, if he refused to surrender again, he would order his execution to prevent any unforeseen consequences. Seeing this situation, the Mandarin sneered disdainfully, "You, a bunch of puny soldiers, think you can take on me, arrogant." The word popped into Chen Haitian's mind. Without hesitation, he lowered his hand to prevent any unforeseen consequences and shouted, "Fire!" Bang, bang, bang. Suddenly, a barrage of gunfire erupted, bullets raining down upon the Mandarin with impunity. But then, a green light burst forth from the Mandarin's body, transforming into a green, transparent sphere. Countless bullets struck the green shield, but the immense force barely caused it to tremble. The shield was a finger's thickness. These bullets couldn't penetrate even a fraction, let alone break through. Chen Haitian gasped, his eyes widening. Damn it! This Mandarin was also a transcendent. There was no mention of him in previous records. Seeing Chen Haitian's surprise, the Mandarin sneered. Countless brass bullets embedded themselves in the green shield, like tiny specks of yellow. The surrounding soldiers, stunned by this sight, involuntarily stopped firing. If the previous son Wukong was a mysterious ancestor from an ancient time, then this Mandarin was a true modern man. Yet, he now possessed extraordinary powers. This truly shocked them. The Mandarin clapped his hands, and the green shield vanished. The bullets all clattered to the ground with a resounding clatter. "Excuse me," he said, "I'm in a hurry to attend to an important matter. I don't have time to waste with you here. So, please die here." With that, the Mandarin held out his hands, and the rings on his 10 fingers glowed green. Boom! But at that moment, a beam of white energy shot towards the Mandarin, but was blocked by a green shield. The Mandarin was unharmed, but his spell was interrupted. He looked up in the direction of the beam and saw a red figure flying towards him. The Mandarin frowned. Chen Haitian also saw the sudden attack of light. He quickly looked over and was immediately delighted. Is he here? Sun Wukong. However, a closer look revealed a different resemblance. Sun Wukong had previously appeared as a red glow. This one, however, resembled a figure. Could it be him? Chen Haitian instantly thought of someone. In the blink of an eye, a red figure appeared overhead. The Mandarin looked at the figure and said, "Tony Stark, sure enough, it's him," Chen Haitian thought to himself. He had already thought of it. Is he here to help? Chen Haitian wondered. Tony first looked at Chen Haitian and nodded as a greeting. Then, he looked at the Mandarin and said, "Mandarin, we finally meet." Tony and the Mandarin had a deep grudge. He had been kidnapped and taken to the cave by the Mandarin's organization, who wanted him to be used as a slave and develop weapons. "Stark," the Mandarin said with a smile. "I suddenly feel a little regretful. I should have had my men kill you earlier, but you don't have that chance anymore." Tony pointed both hands at the Mandarin, his palms radiating a dazzling white light, seemingly imbued with immense power. "Surrender and hand over what you stole from S.H.I.E.L.D., or you will die here," Tony said seriously. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28 recommends a good book on creative flow. Chapter 28, recommending a great book on creative flow, 2024-08-19 author, Good Monster. Chapter 28, recommending a great book on creative flow. Book title, Others Follow Advice to Imitate Celebrities, but You Start by Playing God? Pen name, The Shelter. Synopsis, Lin Nan was born with a serious face, a captivating gaze, and a majestic demeanor. According to ancient texts, this is the look of a god, the majesty of an emperor. One day, a classmate happened to suggest that since online imitations of celebrities are popular, some people even imitate Xiao Wu on a sewing machine. He advised Lin Nan to seek advice from netizens online, perhaps to find a way out. Lin Nan, ever since he was young, followed the advice and started live streaming that day. Newcomer starts live streaming, seeking guidance from the gods. The host has an extraordinary aura, a commanding presence without even anger. Why not give it a try as a deity? That makes sense. The host has a unique face. Go out and buy a cassock, play Tathagata, and sit in front of the camera, beating a wooden fish. Lin Nan followed a netizen's advice, purchasing props, costumes, and makeup. He then researched mythology and folklore, ultimately settling on the role of the thunder god, Jiushan Yingying Li Sheng Pu He Xianzhen. With everything in place, Lin Nan, donning the 9 light shoes, an immortal robe, a lightning belt around his waist, and a male and female whip in hand, seemed truly divine. He sat in front of the camera, attracting countless onlookers and jokingly asking him to show off his skills. With my command, I unite the creations of heaven and earth. Thunder God, help me. Then, with a low cry, Lin Nan formed a seal with his left hand and pointed to the sky with his right. Then, with a deafening roar of thunder, a flash of lightning streaked across the sky, and dark clouds surged in. Suddenly, all netizens were stunned. Are you serious, host? Searching for the book title, keywords in the title, and pen names will all find the results. There's no way to link to a single chapter, so everyone will have to search manually. Chapter 29 Loki's Visit. Chapter 29, Loki's Visit 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster. Chapter 29, Loki's Visit. Boom, but just as Tony finished speaking, the Mandarin raised his hand and shot out a beam of light. Tony quickly dodged. The beam flew past, hitting the advertising screen on a building, punching a hole. Tony's face darkened beneath his armored head. He turned to look at the Mandarin again and said, then there's no room for negotiation. Without hesitation, he settled all old scores, swooping down on the Mandarin. With a bang, he sent him flying, crashing into a store. He then warned Chen Haitian, get out of here. You can't help in this fight anymore. With that, he quickly took off and rushed towards the store. Seeing this, Chen Haitian gritted his teeth, his desire to create a department of superhumans growing stronger. Go, retreat. Let's get out of here. Leave the battlefield to Iron Man, he commanded loudly. The surrounding civilians had already been evacuated, and now they were the only ones left in the area. After a while, they evacuated to a safe area. Chen Haitian stood on a building, watching the battle unfold in the distance. Rumbling sounds could be heard from time to time, and from time to time, brilliant white lights could be seen piercing the sky or striking the buildings, shattering large pieces of glass and masonry, and raining down debris. Although he couldn't see the specifics of the battle, he could imagine how fierce the fighting was. Chen Haitian frowned. At this moment, a subordinate nearby asked worriedly, Director, do you think Iron Man can handle the Mandarin? I don't know. Chen Haitian shook his head. The Mandarin's magic made it uncertain whether Iron Man could handle him. After all, one relies on magic, something supernatural, while the other relies on technology. While Tony's level of technology could be considered supernatural, there was still a fundamental difference between the two. Just as Chen Haitian finished speaking, there was a sudden boom. A beam of light, several times larger than any before it, shot diagonally up into the sky. Bang! With a resounding roar, it pierced through a building and pierced the sky. Hong Kong had been overcast today, looking like it was going to rain, but this beam of light pierced the sky, creating a hole in the clouds. Sunlight streamed through the hole. Seeing this, Chen Haitian and his companions collectively gasped, their faces filled with shock. But then, there was no more movement, as if the battle was over. Why is there no sound over there? Is it over? Who won? I don't know, the group murmured. Chen Haitian, too, was puzzled, unsure of the winner. But just then, a red figure flew over and quickly landed. It was Iron Man. Chen Haitian's heart skipped a beat, believing Iron Man had won. But just as he was about to speak, the Iron Man suit opened, and Tony stepped out. He coughed a few times, his face flushing unusually red. Then, with a look of worry on his face, he said, the Mandarin has escaped. You guys, hurry and hunt him down. I have a feeling he'll use that tesseract for something dangerous." With that, he slipped back into his Iron Man suit and flew away. Chen Haitian was shocked upon hearing this. While he wasn't sure if Tony's words were true, it was best to treat them as if they were. He immediately called out to his subordinates, "Quick, notify everyone else. Search the city for the Mandarin. Even if we have to dig deep, we'll find him." "Yes." The subordinates, having heard what Iron Man had said, grew nervous, realizing the gravity of the situation. They sprang into action. Chen Haitian followed. As he ran, he thought, "Damn it. If only Sun Wukong or that Tathagata Buda were here. If Tony can't do it, those two definitely can. They might be able to easily destroy the Mandarin." Tony soared through the sky. The suit had been badly damaged in the battle with the Mandarin. While it could still fight, he needed a new one to prevent any future incidents. Tony was also perpetually anxious, as if something serious was about to happen. "Sir, we've detected an abnormality in your body." Just then, Jarvis' voice rang out. "What's the abnormality?" "The particle collisions in the reactor have caused the palladium to become unstable. It's spreading and is now eroding your body through your bloodstream. Please remove the reactor as soon as possible and seek treatment." Tony remained silent. He had upgraded the reactor and installed it without testing it. This was inherently unstable. He hadn't anticipated the palladium poisoning. But how could he possibly remove it now? This reactor was far more powerful than the previous one. If he had used the previous one in a battle with the Mandarin, he would likely have been killed. Tony remembered the white light released by the Mandarin's final use of the Tesseract, which he had narrowly avoided. If it hit, the suit would surely be damaged over 90%, and he'd be finished. Meanwhile, in the area where Tony and the Mandarin were fighting, on a building, Loki, holding the Mind Scepter, gazed at the devastation below, a smile on his face. He hadn't been seen since he took control of the Mandarin. He was afraid of being discovered by that Monkey King. The last time he sent out the destroyers, they were all destroyed by Monkey King. Although he was furious and wanted to kill Monkey King, he was also filled with fear of him. So, he planned to stay hidden and avoid attracting attention until the Chitauri arrived. "While that slave is preparing the space channel, I'll make contact with the civilization of this planet," Loki said with a smile. After the Chitauri attacked this planet and stole the Infinity Stones, it became his. Although he despised this planet, he still wanted to be the king of Asgard. But something is better than nothing, right? Loki smiled and immediately cast a spell, transforming his attire into a black suit. The Mind Staff in his hand also transformed into an ordinary hand. At that moment, he resembled a gentleman, yet his expression and demeanor held an unusual arrogance. A moment later, Loki was walking through another area. The people there were still unaware of what had happened at the port. Everything was business as usual. And they had no idea what would happen next. Loki used the Mind Staff to gather information, but he discovered that many people were discussing a man named Lin Feng. This man was a great scholar, and he even had some knowledge of Sun Wukong. Loki was delighted. "I must visit such a person. Learn more about Sun Wukong so I can take him down." Without further ado, Loki immediately found Lin Feng's location. He then sought out the Mandarin, who was hiding out, researching the dimensional channel, and asked him for the cosmic cube, so he could use it to reach Lin Feng's residence. Chapter 30 Professor Lin. Chapter 30 Professor Lin 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster Chapter 30 Professor Lin Feng's residence. Lin Feng was sitting at the desk, writing about Sun Wukong. He had already written about Sun Wukong's birth, his apprenticeship, and so on. Now he has written about the plot of the Havoc in Heaven. And he also planned to temporarily write about the Havoc in Heaven and end before being pressed under the Five Elements Mountain by Tathagata. Of course, he did not write too much detail. Because there's a key problem. If it is written in too much detail and everything is covered, it is easy to arouse suspicion. It is better to be detailed like this, but some parts are unclear and not perfect. Besides, isn't history like this? Erlang Shen was ordered to deal with Sun Wukong. Lin Feng was writing, and suddenly found that the next role he could play could be Erlang Shen. Erlang Shen is quite powerful, and my lecture this time, featuring the battle between Erlang Shen and Sun Wukong, will undoubtedly spark curiosity about him. Then, when I play Erlang Shen and appear in person, won't that create a huge sensation? Lin Feng's excitement grew. But just then, someone arrived. It was Principal Zhao Songyang and Professor Feng Minimum. "Professor Lin, we've come to see you," Zhao Songyang greeted. Welcome, welcome. Lin Feng put down his pen, stood up, and smiled. Please sit down. I'll get 2 cups of tea, no need to bother. We just wanted to come and see. We'll be gone after a while, haha. Even if we're going to sit for a while, we still have some tea. Lin Feng went to make some tea. Zhao Songyang and Fang Min saw this and didn't try to stop him. They sat down. Suddenly, Fang Min noticed a pen and notebook on the desk. She turned to Lin Feng, who was making tea, and asked, Professor Lin, what are you writing about? Oh, about Sun Wukong, Lin Feng said. Professor Feng didn't go into a lot of detail in his last lecture. So I'm planning to update the information I have and share it publicly so everyone can learn more about Sun Wukong. Zhao Songyang and Fang Min were stunned by this, then immediately delighted. Fang Min, in particular, had very little information on Sun Wukong. He only had a fragmented copy, incomplete and worm-eaten. Therefore, the information he could gather was minimal. He had always been curious about Sun Wukong and wanted to know more about him. Now that Professor Lin knew about him and planned to write it down and publish it, it was great news. Zhao Songyang was also excited. He, too, wanted to know about Sun Wukong. He asked impatiently, Professor Lin, can we take a look? Sure. But I haven't finished it yet. Zhao Songyang and Fang Min, excited by the first part of the sentence, stood up and walked over to the table. But the second part stopped them dead in their tracks. Not finished yet, then, they exchanged glances and agreed to hold off for now. They'd wait until Professor Lin finished and gave his lecture before revisiting the story of Sun Wukong. With that in mind, they decided to take a look at the notebook. But before they could even read, they were captivated by Lin Feng's handwriting. Professor Fang Min praised him, Professor Lin, you're not only knowledgeable, but your handwriting is also beautiful. Yes, your strokes are powerful and strong, and the characters flow seamlessly, with a flowing beauty. And you used a gel pen. If you'd used a brush, it could be framed and kept as a family heirloom. Zhao Songyang commented. He wasn't flattering, he was speaking the truth. As the president of Wukong University, he possesses a strong understanding of this subject, so his words clearly indicate that Lin Feng's calligraphy is truly remarkable. Thank you very much. It's nothing special, it's just practice, Lin Feng said with a smile. This calligraphy was actually inspired by his experience playing the role of Tathagata Buddha, which led to his writing. Of course, if you were to write like this while portraying Tathagata Buddha, the words would imbue him with the Buddha's nature and principles. At that moment, I'm afraid those 2 old men would decide to shave their heads and become monks on the spot after taking one look at it. Hearing this, Zhao Songyang nodded and chuckled, yes, your calligraphy is impossible without diligent practice and natural talent. Lin Feng smiled again. Then, tea was brewed, and he came over with it. The 3 of them sat down and chatted for a while, before Zhao Songyang and Fang Min excused themselves, pledging not to disturb Lin Feng's work. The scene changed. Loki had arrived in the capital, harnessing the power of the cosmic cube. Meanwhile, the Mandarin's work on the space tunnel was proceeding smoothly. Loki, dressed in a suit, stood beneath a tree, using his mind staff to gather information. People here are also talking about this Lin Feng. It seems this Lin Feng is a man of real ability. Loki's lips curled up, further reaffirming his decision to visit this Lin Feng. But then, unnoticed, a husky approached his feet, sniffed, and lifted its hind legs. A stream of yellow water shot out, splashing onto his trouser legs. Loki stared around, concentrating on gathering information, oblivious. It wasn't until he felt a damp, hot sensation on his legs, accompanied by a foul odor, that he looked down. He immediately exploded. A lowly creature had dared to urinate on his leg. Ah! You lowly creature, you're courting death, Loki shouted furiously. The husky, startled by the shout, took off running before even finishing its piss, heading towards a young man who was running towards him. The young man was sweating profusely, having obviously been chasing the husky. Husky pig, why are you running so fast? I have to chase you, the young man scolded the husky. Then he looked up at the man in front of him. He saw that his trouser legs were wet, and there were water stains at his feet. He was looking at him with murderous eyes. His heart skipped a beat, and he swallowed hard. He glanced at the husky next to him, then at the puddle at its feet. He immediately realized something and hurriedly pulled the husky forward, apologizing to Loki. Excuse me, sir. Did my dog pee on you? How much are your pants? I'll compensate you. I'm so sorry, The young man apologized hastily, then kicked the husky next to him and cursed, "You beast, look what you've done." The husky, taken in by the kick, lay on the ground in frustration. Loki's face darkened, his eyes blazing with fire. He said in a deep voice, "You're done with just an apology and compensation? Do you know what kind of being is standing before you?" "What kind of being?" the young man asked, startled by Loki's expression. "I'm the Prince of Asgard, a god high and mighty," Loki shouted. Then, pointing at the other person, he cursed, "You lowly human. How dare you allow this even lower class creature beside you to urinate on my legs? Do you know how expensive this dress I'm wearing is? It's a birthday gift my mother made for me, using silk from the silkworm king of the celestial silkworm planet and dyes from the cosmic rainbow. It's priceless. You lowly human, you've angered a god." Loki had never encountered such a situation before. It was undoubtedly an insult to him. Furthermore, the dress he was wearing was made by his mother. So what do you want to do?" the young man asked, stunned. "When I become the master of this earth, I will skin and tear the bones from this lowly creature, leaving it to suffer eternally. As for you, I will make you the lowest of slaves, toiling like a beast, working day and night." From the human information Loki had gathered, almost everyone hated work. Therefore, he considered this the most horrific punishment for earthlings. The young man swallowed hard at this. He looked at Loki warily, then crouched down slowly. Without a word, he picked up the husky at his feet and ran away. Seeing this, Loki thought the other party was scared. He sneered and tried to use his mind wand to listen to the fear in the other party's heart. But he didn't expect to hear these words. "Damn it, I've run into a psychopath. Run." Chapter 31, I Was Fooled. Chapter 31, Tricking the Cripple, 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster. Chapter 31, Tricking the Cripple. Loki was stunned. Immediately, he erupted in rage, his expression like a mad beast. He raised his scepter in a fury, aiming at the young man carrying the dog, intending to kill him. But his remaining rationality told him to remain calm. If he attacked now, it would cause panic among the passers-by, and might even attract the attention of Sun Wukong. The space tunnel wasn't complete yet, and the Chitauri army hadn't arrived yet. He had to stay low and keep a low profile. Loki's arm trembled with anger, gripping the scepter. But he ultimately let it go, not killing the young man. "Forget it. Wait until the Chitauri army arrives, and I become the master of Earth, and then I'll deal with you," Loki said sullenly. He was still furious, but for now, he had to prioritize the greater good. With the help of the cosmic cube, Loki arrived at Lin Feng's residence. Seeing the tranquil and beautiful surroundings, he nodded to himself. Indeed, such a beautiful place is fit only for great scholars. Though Loki was cunning, he had a natural love of learning. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to settle down and study sorcery with his mother. Furthermore, Asgard also had great scholars, and he always treated them with respect. "Guest outside, please come in," a voice called from within the room. Hearing this, Loki hesitated for a moment before stepping inside. Upon entering, he saw a young man sitting behind a desk. Loki had already learned Lin Feng's appearance, so he recognized him immediately. "Hello, Mr. Lin," Loki greeted. Lin Feng looked at Loki and recognized him. He was a little surprised that he'd come to see him, but upon reflection, it made sense. Loki's presence on Earth meant that the Chitauri army he brought with him was about to make an appearance. Since his previous plan had been thwarted by Sun Wukong, he would undoubtedly seek to learn about Sun Wukong's situation and seek revenge. So, it wasn't surprising that he'd use this as an excuse to track me down. After all, the entire internet probably knew what I said at the lecture by now. "Hello, please take a seat," Lin Feng said. Regarding Loki's purpose for coming here, Lin Feng didn't mention his intention to impersonate Sun Wukong and kill him. After all, even if Loki learned of Sun Wukong's strength, what would that do? Upon hearing this, Loki sat down and asked with a smile, "I hear you know a lot about Sun Wukong." Loki didn't waste any time, getting straight to the point. "I'm not so sure, I only know a little bit," Lin Feng said modestly. "Then could you tell me more about Sun Wukong?" "I'm still researching it," Lin Feng said. "Once I'm done, I'll give a lecture. You can come and listen then." "Lecture? Is it free?" "Yes." "Great." Loki smiled broadly, thinking, truly a great scholar, so broad-minded, understanding that knowledge shouldn't be closed off, but should be open and freely imparted to others. Based on your research, do you think this Sun Wukong is powerful? Loki asked again. This was the question that concerned him most. Of course, Lin Feng was about to say, of course he is powerful, but mid-sentence, a thought struck him, and with a playful twist of phrase, he changed the subject. Not powerful, not powerful. Hearing this result, Loki was startled, then curious, and hurriedly asked, how can he not be powerful? He single-handedly destroyed 18 destroyers. Iron giants. Loki wanted to say destroyer, but suddenly remembered that humans on Earth called them iron giants. If he said it directly, it might arouse suspicion, so he quickly changed his words. At this moment, the two of them, one after the other, performed a similar action. Haha, Lin Feng chuckled, then instantly thought of an excuse. That's because the iron giants were so few in number. You must have seen the video of that incident, right? Don't you notice that Sun Wukong's attack mode is too simple? He can only swing and smash with an iron rod, with no other means of attack. And that's too exhausting, so if the numbers outnumber him, Sun Wukong will inevitably be defeated. That's why I say he's not that strong. Hiss. Upon hearing this, Loki's eyes lit up with a clear, bright, and excited light. Before, I thought this Sun Wukong was so powerful that even the arrival of the Chitauri army would probably require considerable effort to defeat him. But now it seems that it won't be necessary at all. Loki's understanding soared, and his confidence soared. He quickly stood up, saluted solemnly toward Lin Feng, and said gratefully, "Thank you, Mr. Lin, for clearing my mind. I'll definitely present you with a generous gift in the near future." Loki had already decided that once he became the ruler of Earth, he would award the great scholar before him an official position, erect a statue, build a school, and honor him. Suddenly, Loki thought of something else and said, "One more thing, please. Will there really be figures like Sun Wukong awakening in the future?" Loki had already gathered a lot of information about Lin Feng, including one about this situation. "Yes, then what are their strengths?" Loki asked hurriedly. "From my observations, I think they are about the same as Sun Wukong." "Okay, I'm enlightened. Thank you again, sir, for clearing my mind." Loki's smile curled harder than an AK-47. If the ancient figures awakened later were comparable in strength to Sun Wukong, then there was nothing to worry about. Under the mighty Chitauri army, they were all ants. Loki added, "Then I won't bother you any more, sir. I'll look forward to completing your research. We'll see you another day." "See you another day. I hope you won't be surprised when you see me again." "Okay, goodbye," Lin Feng said with a smile. Loki left. Once Lin Feng was sure Loki was gone, he couldn't help but chuckle, then burst into laughter. He could tell from Loki's reaction that he had successfully tricked him. What would his reaction be when he saw Sun Wukong slaughtering the Chitauri army? It was hilarious to think about. But next up is a big Sun Wukong battle scene. The destruction of the destroyer was just an appetizer. After this battle, the world will witness Sun Wukong's power and will undoubtedly intensify their curiosity. Then, I'll hold a lecture and tell the detailed story of Sun Wukong. It's bound to be a huge hit, Lin Feng said with a smile. He could already foresee the scene. The streets would be packed, the excitement would be immense. And at the same time, President Zhao Songyang and Professor Feng Min had just returned to Wukong University when they were approached by members of the Ministry of State Security. "What can I do for you?" Zhao Songyang asked the two officers in his office. One of them smiled and said, "President Zhao, we'd like to know about Lin Feng's situation." Lin Feng, Zhao Songyang and Feng Min were stunned. "What do you want to know about Lin Feng?" Professor Feng Min asked. Chapter 32 The two people's suspicion of Lin Feng. Chapter 32 The two are suspicious of Lin Feng. 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster. Chapter 32 The two are suspicious of Lin Feng. Zhao Songyang and Feng Min were very curious. What did this person from the Ministry of State Security come to Lin Feng to find out? Lin Feng is a historian, and the two have nothing in common. Zhuang Fei smiled and said, "It's like this. We investigated Professor Lin and found that he is a history enthusiast in his daily life. Apart from that, there is nothing special about him. Well, we have also investigated this situation and asked him in person." Zhao Songyang nodded. "But there is a question," Zhuang Fei said with a puzzled look. "Why does Professor Lin know about Sun Wukong? You have also investigated the matter of Sun Wukong, but you have very little information, right? But he has more information than you, isn't that strange?" Could it be that his channels for obtaining information are even better than yours? Zhuang Fei and his colleagues received an order from Chen Haitian to come to Wukong University to investigate Lin Feng. When Chen Haitian saw the video of Lin Feng's lecture, he was surprised how this person knew all this. The appearance of Tathagata Buda later surprised him even more, because this confirmed what Lin Feng said. So, he asked his subordinates to ask Lin Feng why he knew all this. Hearing this, Zhao Songyang and Fang Min frowned. Of course, it was not because of Lin Feng, but because of Zhuang Fei's words, as if Professor Lin was a weirdo. They had come into contact with Professor Lin. How could such a person who had a deep understanding of ancient times, was diligent and studious, had good handwriting, and was gentle to others be a weirdo? Immediately, Zhao Songyang and Fang Min were a little unwelcome to the two people from the Ministry of State Security. They were both intellectuals from that era. Stubborn and stubborn. Even their superiors dared to talk back. Fang Min's face fell. Don't you know that the experts are among the common people? Besides, have you forgotten how much technology private enterprises brought to the country during the industrial survey? Haha, Professor Fang, don't get excited. Seeing this historical figure's reaction, Zhuang Fei quickly smiled. He didn't know what was wrong with him. It seemed he hadn't said anything. He added, I know that. But don't you think Professor Lin is exaggerating a bit? Exaggerated? How is that exaggerating? At this moment, Principal Zhao Songyang, who had remained silent until then, spoke in an unpleasant tone. Do you think Professor Lin is also a figure from ancient Earth who has now awakened? No, we don't think so, Zhuang Fei said, embarrassed, and hurriedly explained. He couldn't say that. If it got out, people would think they were just some kind of people in the Ministry of State Security, who would find such a thing so outrageous. Zhuang Fei looked at the drooping faces of Zhao Songyang and Fang Min, still confused as to why they were suddenly angry. But after seeing the two people's reactions, he also understood that if he continued to ask like this, there would be no other results, and he might even be asked to leave. So, he had no choice but to stand up and said, I'm sorry, President, Professor Fang, I'll stop here for now. We have something else to do over there, so I'll take my leave now. No need to see you off, Zhao Songyang said. He picked up the tea and took a sip. This is called serving tea and seeing off guests. Seeing this, Zhuang Fei smiled helplessly in his heart and walked out with his companions. Zhao Songyang and Fang Min looked at each other, and then they both shook their heads. They didn't know what was wrong with the people from the Ministry of State Security who came to investigate Professor Lin. Let alone Professor Lin being a freak. Even if he really was a freak, so what? He was able to research things from ancient times and present the information to the world. This is an unprecedented event. No one should think of hindering this. Zhuang Fei and his companions left Wukong University. Sitting in the car, Zhuang Fei took out his mobile phone and called Chen Haitian. Hello, Director, this is Zhuang Fei. I've come to Wukong University to inquire about Lin Feng's situation. Zhuang Fei recounted the details of the recent findings. Chen Haitian frowned upon hearing this. He hadn't expected Zhao Songyang and Fang Min to defend Lin Feng so much. However, after thinking it over, he seemed to understand. Lin Feng was currently researching events from that era, so it was natural for these two old men to defend him. He pondered for a moment and said, I understand. Don't investigate Lin Feng for now. Wait until I finish dealing with things here. Yes. After hanging up the phone, Chen Haitian pondered for a moment. The situation in Xiangjiang City hadn't been resolved yet, so Lin Feng's matter should be put aside for now. I wonder where this Mandarin has hidden himself? Could he be a rat or a cockroach and have disappeared into the sewer? Chen Haitian wondered. They had searched for a long time, but there was no trace of the Mandarin. This was truly worrying. Meanwhile, in the United States, Nick was watching the battle video Tony had sent him. Finally, he watched the massive beam of light emanating from the Mandarin pierce through a building at an angle, then soar into the sky, piercing through the dark clouds. He gasped, a look of shock on his face. This power is truly terrifying. No wonder Tony lost. Besides, that son Wukong certainly wouldn't be able to withstand it. Nick frowned and pondered. It seems Tony's power alone is far from enough. We must assemble the Avengers as soon as possible, Nick thought to himself. This was the plan he'd been toying with recently, assembling a team of supernatural powers to deal with future dangers. Ding-ling-ling. Ding-ling-ling, but just then, a rapid ring rang out. Nick saw the incoming call alert and felt a sense of helplessness, but he had to answer it. He pressed a button on the desk. Suddenly, a virtual screen appeared. On it were the leaders of SHIELD. One of them barked, "Nick Fury, what are you doing? How did things turn out like this? Don't you know what to do in this situation?" The other person was talking about the Mandarin. According to SHIELD's old practice, if the Mandarin stole the dangerous Tesseract, SHIELD would immediately deploy troops and heavy weaponry, seal off the city and streets, and confront him. "Commander, times have changed," Nick said. "You've seen the video I sent you, haven't you? If we use the old methods to fight the Mandarin, it would inevitably cause widespread urban destruction, with countless casualties. Besides, you've seen what's happening in China. They haven't deployed a large-scale military or heavy weaponry, suggesting they're also concerned about this. So we should change our tactics. The Avengers plan is the best solution right now." Nick had already submitted the Avengers plan, but his superiors were holding it up, worried that it wouldn't work. Several leaders paused, pondering their decision. After a moment, one of them said, "Can't we train our own people?" Nick shook his head. "The Avengers need exceptional individuals with specialized abilities, like Tony Stark. So, we can't train them." Silence followed. After a while, the leader who had spoken earlier said, "Nick Fury, there is no other way now. Just try your method. If you can capture the Mandarin and retrieve the Tesseract, then it means your method works, and we agree to the Avengers plan." Hearing this, Nick's heart moved, and he quickly said, "Yes." Chapter 33 The Space Tunnel Device is built. Chapter 33 The Space Tunnel Device is complete. 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster. Chapter 33 The Space Tunnel Device is complete. Nick knew this was a difficult request, but now was not the time to dwell on it. The leader continued, "To complete the mission, you are permitted to use the aerospace carrier. Remember, the cosmic cube contains immense power. We must recapture it. We must not allow it to fall into the hands of the Mandarin or the Chinese." "Yes," Nick said. Conceptual aircraft carriers like the aerospace carrier had already been developed by the United States, but they had never been publicly displayed. This time, if it weren't for the cosmic cube's importance, it wouldn't have been so easily displayed. After the leaders finished their instructions, they all logged off. Nick also closed the video link. He paused. Currently, the only confirmed candidate is Tony, but he hasn't fully expressed his intention to join the Avengers. However, that's not important for now. We need to find another person to help. Tony's power alone isn't enough. Nick thought of the person he had recently dug out of the Antarctic Ocean. Nick arrived at the assigned lodgings, explained the situation, and extended an invitation. "Steve Rogers, we need your help now." Nick looked at the man before him. He was wearing a vest, his muscles well developed, yet not bulky. He possessed considerable strength. It was none other than Captain America. During the battle with Hydra, he had lost control of his plane and crashed into the Antarctic Ocean. It was only recently discovered and excavated by SHIELD, but now, he seemed to have a hard time fitting into modern society. After all, so much had changed over the years. Rogers thought for a moment, then shook his head. "Mr. Fury, I'm sorry, but I'm a man left behind. This era doesn't belong to me, so I decline your invitation." Rogers tried to fit in, but found himself completely out of place. He had no desire to pursue such superheroic pursuits. Nick's remaining eye furrowed his brow. "This world needs you to save it. Have you forgotten your past? Where's that man who risked his life to catch a grenade for his comrades?" Rogers froze, looking up at Nick, surprise in his eyes. He hadn't expected Nick to know this. This rekindled a fire within him. Nick observed Rogers' surprised reaction and continued, "There are many lives waiting for you to save. You feel abandoned by the times, but I believe this world needs your help, too." Nick paused, then added, "If you still consider yourself a soldier, then follow me. I'm leaving for China now." With that, Nick turned and walked away. He didn't say anything more. He had said everything he needed to say. If Rogers still didn't follow, then he had misjudged him. Da, 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 the sound of Nick's leather shoes faded away. Rogers stood there, head slightly lowered, fists clenched, hesitant and struggling. Scenes of past battles flashed through his mind. Finally, the spark in his heart turned to flame, his clenched fists loosened, his decision made. He picked up his backpack from the ground and walked towards Nick. Nick was waiting outside. The moment Rogers emerged with his bag, Agent Maria beside him exclaimed in surprise, "Director, he's out." "Yes," Nick nodded, a smile crossing his face. He hadn't misjudged him. Rogers approached Nick and said, "Mr. Fury, I accept your invitation." Nick nodded and said, "Let's go. Time is running out. We're heading to Xiangjiang City in China. However, you'd better be prepared." "This trip might surprise you," Rogers asked, puzzled. "What do you mean?" Rogers thought, "I've even encountered a freak like Red Skull before, so what else could surprise me?" "You'll see when you get there," Nick smiled. The scene changed. Xiangjiang. A factory. Various mechanical devices lay on the ground, each connected by wires of varying thicknesses. Most strikingly, in the center of the apparatus stood a massive device resembling a rocket propeller. However, it was clearly not a rocket propeller. The wiring from the surrounding, highly technological devices all connected to this massive device. At a row of controllers, the Mandarin worked excitedly, his fingers rapidly tapping away at the keyboard as he debugged the space tunnel. "Almost there. Almost there, it's almost done," the Mandarin muttered excitedly to himself. As the leader of the Ten Commandments, he possessed more than just magical powers, he also held several highly regarded doctoral degrees. He was a gifted scientist, and with the help of his magic, he had been able to build such a powerful underground empire. Of course, this wasn't something he had achieved out of thin air. Soon, with a humming sound, the rocket-like space tunnel device lit up with a white light. Debugging complete, no anomalies found. Success, the Mandarin paused, observing the scene, his face filled with excitement. Finally, his master's mission had been accomplished. "Although I can't say that I have fully mastered the principle of space tunnels, this device is enough to open a fixed space tunnel," the Mandarin said excitedly. He did not fully master this technology. Therefore, what he made now can only be regarded as a castrated version of the space tunnel. It can only open a space tunnel in a fixed place. It cannot open a space tunnel in any corner of the universe. "Next, we have to wait for the master to come back," the Mandarin said. Loki took the cosmic cube to find Lin Feng. In order to operate this device, it is necessary to rely on the power of the cosmic cube. There is no substitute. It's like a gasoline car. You have to add gasoline to it before it can move. Just after the Mandarin was busy. After a while, a blue light flashed, and Loki appeared. Loki saw the tool in front of him full of the colors of the earth, and his face became surprised. The Mandarin strode over and said respectfully, "Master, you're back." "Yes." Loki came to his senses, pointed at the tool, and asked the Mandarin, have you finished it?" "Yes, the device to open the space tunnel is already built. As long as the master uses the cosmic magic tool, the space tunnel can be opened and the Chitauri army can descend on Earth." "Excellent. Very good," Loki praised, very satisfied. He had not expected this tool to be so fast. He added, "When I become the master of Earth, I will definitely give you a job with 2 days off a week, 6 social insurances and 1 housing fund, absolutely no overtime, and if you do, triple your wages." From the human information Loki had collected, many people wanted jobs with 2 days off a week, insurances, and other requirements, so he thought this must be a good job. Thank you, Master." The Mandarin looked a little strange, but he didn't dare say anything more. After making his promise, Loki looked back at the tunnel mechanism and excitedly declared, "Activate it now. Open the tunnel, and let the Chitauri army descend." "Now?" the Mandarin asked. He sensed his master was a bit anxious. He'd just returned, and already he was eager to open the tunnel, not even taking a break. Well, time waits for no one, Loki thought about Lin Feng's words, his eyes narrowed. Next, ancient figures like Sun Wukong will awaken one after another. We need to quickly deploy the Chitauri army and seize Earth, so we can better counter them. Of course, you don't have to worry. I've heard that Sun Wukong isn't that powerful, and those who have awakened are no match for him. The Mandarin, curious, asked, "Where did your master learn this information?" "From a great scholar named Lin Feng," Loki beamed. Speaking of Lin Feng, his tone was filled with respect. He's a true scholar, painstakingly researching data, then selflessly sharing his discoveries. He's like a beacon in the darkness, guiding others. He's truly magnificent. Hearing Loki's praise, Mandarin became curious about Lin Feng and wanted to get to know him. After all, they might work together in the future. But he didn't know he'd soon meet Lin Feng. "Alright, Don't waste time, get started, Loki exclaimed, then urged. Yes. Meanwhile, Chen Haitian was still searching for Mandarin. Xiangjiang City was quite large, and with no clues about Mandarin's escape, finding him was no easy task. Damn it! Where the hell is he hiding? Chen Haitian was furious. His eyes were red from not resting for so long. Furthermore, a beard had grown on his chin, and he hadn't had the time or energy to care for it, making him look much shaggier than before. Stark said he might be planning something big with the Tesseract. After all this time, he probably already has it done. Chen Haitian was anxious and a little apprehensive, feeling like something bad was about to happen. Boom boom boom, just then, a rumbling sound echoed from the sky. Chen Haitian looked up and saw a red steel armor flying towards him at high speed. Iron Man, why is he here again? Chen Haitian frowned. Of course, he wasn't unwelcome. He was coming again, so he must be here to help. Bang! Iron Man landed in front of Chen Haitian, stirring up a gust of air that spread out in all directions. Chen Haitian waved away the dust. Tony looked at Chen Haitian and asked, Director Chen, have you found the Mandarin? Tony changed into a new suit of steel armor and hurried over. Of course, the palladium element was still eating away at his body. But at this critical moment, he couldn't afford to worry about anything else. No, Chen Haitian shook his head, saying, I don't know where he's hiding. What did you say? Tony was startled. His unease intensified at this. He'd seen the Mandarin was planning something with the Tesseract before, and now that so much time had passed, he might have already done it. Damn it. Without asking nonsense like why haven't we found it, Tony quickly requested Jarvis's help. Jarvis, check for gamma-ray emissions. He planned to use the same method as before to locate the Mandarin's hiding place. Yes, sir, Jarvis said. Less than 3 minutes later, Jarvis' voice rang out, Sir, the gamma-ray emissions are increasing in intensity. This intensity far exceeds what was emitted previously, but it's likely coming from the Tesseract. Tony's face darkened. While he had no idea what the Mandarin was doing with the Tesseract, it had to be something bad. He immediately said, Locate the location of the emission. With that, he launched his Iron Man suit into the air, ready to rush over. But Chen Haitian, upon seeing this, hurriedly called out, Mr. Stark, have you found the Mandarin's hiding place? He had overheard Tony and Jarvis's exchange. Yes, the Mandarin is using the Tesseract to do something. I'm going to stop him now, Tony declared midair, turning and flying away. Chen Haitian was stunned for a moment. Then, his reaction was immediate. The Mandarin is already using the Tesseract, he cursed inwardly, damn it, and quickly pulled out his intercom, shouting, Assemble. Emergency assembling. The Mandarin has been found, but just as he was about to call out, a sudden, loud boom erupted, and a brilliant, azure beam of light shot straight into the sky from afar. Suddenly, the wind and clouds swirled, and the wind blew violently. The sky, struck by the beam, twisted and formed a vortex. At the center of the vortex, lightning bolts as thick as bowls swirled, accompanied by a deafening roar of thunder. This scene was so bizarre that it attracted the attention and curiosity of many passers-by on the ground below. Even the most experienced elders had never seen anything like it. Holy shit, look at the sky. What's going on? It really is. What's going on? I don't know. Could it be what that Lin Feng on the internet said, that another ancient figure has awakened? It's possible. What the hell? Such a big scene. Are you sure these aren't aliens? Don't believe rumors. Don't spread them. Could it be some kind of unusual phenomenon? Like a mirage or a rainbow? Get out of here. It's already like this, and you're still talking about mirages and rainbows. That's right. You can throw your brains away. This situation definitely doesn't occur naturally. Discussions raged. Workers, students, the elderly, and children all witnessed the scene, but none of them realized the danger. Only those with a strong sixth sense had a slight sense of danger, but they didn't understand what was happening. Boom, Tony was speeding along when he suddenly stopped. His face changed drastically. He saw a brilliant azure beam of light connecting the sky to the location ahead. It looked incredibly strange. Damn it. This must be the work of that Mandarin? What on earth is he trying to do? Tony couldn't figure it out. But he didn't think too much about it. He continued to fly towards the beam of light. He wanted to stop the other party as soon as possible and shut down the beam of light. For some reason, as soon as the beam of light appeared, the uneasy feeling in his heart completely erupted. This means that the beam of light itself is dangerous, or it will bring some danger. We must stop him. Tony turned on high power flight. Under this consumption, palladium elements were continuously emitted, eroding his body. Sir, you have been poisoned by palladium elements. Stop and receive treatment. At this time, Jarvis' voice rang out. There is no time. We can't stop, Tony refused anxiously. The blood vessels on his neck were already faintly visible in black. Chapter 34 The Chitauri army has arrived and the Earth is in danger. Chapter 34 The Chitauri army has arrived, Earth is in danger. 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster Chapter 34 The Chitauri army has arrived, Earth is in danger. Chen Haitian stared at the azure pillar of light in the distance, stunned. That must have been created by the Mandarin using the Tesseract. Stark's prediction was correct. But what is he planning to do with this pillar of light? Chen Haitian didn't understand. But he felt a surge of unease, a sense that the pillar of light was causing serious trouble. Whatever he's planning, it won't be good. Chen Haitian's face was filled with anxiety. Now they could only hope that Stark could rush over and stop the Mandarin's actions in time. Right now, Chen Haitian and Tony still believed the Pillar of Light was the Mandarin's own creation. They didn't know that the Mandarin was being controlled by Loki, and that he was responsible for all this. Hong Kong Temple. The Ancient One, accompanied by many of his disciples, stood on the upper floor, watching the scene in the distance. A look of disbelief crossed his face. How could it appear in Hong Kong? Shouldn't it appear in New York? Ancient One's mind was in turmoil. He'd seen this happen before in the Time Stone. But it happened in New York, so why was it in Hong Kong now? What the hell is going on? Why has it changed so drastically? Ancient One felt uneasy. For the first time, he felt as if everything was slipping out of his control. But how could this be possible? He was Earth's supreme sorcerer, its protector. Ancient One's mind was a little unsettled. This was a very troublesome situation for a supreme sorcerer. An unstable mind made him vulnerable to the dark side's influence. But thankfully, he had lived as a supreme sorcerer for many years. He quickly regained his composure. Let's not think about this for now. The Hong Kong Temple's in danger. We must protect it. Otherwise, if it's destroyed, creatures from the dark dimension will invade Earth, and that will cause even greater trouble, Ancient One thought to himself. Lin Feng's residence. Lin Feng's lips curled up into a smile. Finally, it's about to begin, and the story he'd written about Sun Wukong wreaking havoc in heaven officially entered its climax. Boom boom boom, the sky, struck by the azure beam of light, swirled faster and faster, lightning flashing continuously. Finally, a hole resembling a black hole formed. The aura of the universe continuously emanated from the hole. Ha 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 ha! On the building, Loki laughed heartily, his heart filled with excitement and elation. It's finally open. Thor, and that Sun Wukong, you all wait. I'm going to show you how powerful I am. Chitauri army, descend. Conquer this planet for me. Loki arrogantly extended his hand. A flash of light green light flashed across him. His suit and trousers transformed back into Asgardian attire, and he donned a golden crown resembling deer antlers. In this moment of glory, he must appear in the most majestic manner. Meanwhile, on the other side of the hole, in the universe, an immense space battleship quietly floated. Beside it lay a number of spaceships, smaller but not quite as large. They seemed to be waiting for something. After the hole appeared, lights across the spaceships suddenly lit up, and then countless aliens, in their craft, flew towards the hole. They were hideous, their voices emitting strange cries. But their excitement and enthusiasm were palpable. Boom, 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 tens of thousands of alien creatures, piloting craft, flew out of the hole and headed towards the ground below. Simultaneously, mechanical worms, resembling worms, also flew out of the hole. They were enormous, ferocious, terrifying, and technologically advanced. As soon as they appeared, they recklessly attacked the ground below. Energy beams blasted into the ground or buildings, instantly creating a crater. This demonstrated the power of these beams. Boom, boom, boom. In less than 30 seconds, a vast number of Chitauri soldiers, piloting their craft, spread out in all directions and launched their attack. Smoke billowed, and the flames of war spread rapidly. On the ground, humans fled like ants, frantically. Only then did they finally understand what the beam of light was all about. Run. 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 Alien invasion. Aliens invasion. Damn aliens. Come on. Your grandpa isn't afraid of you. Help. Help. Someone save me. Damn aliens, just wait. Sun Wukong will appear and destroy you. Mom, Mom, woo, woo, woo. For a moment, shouting, cursing, crying, and explosions filled the air. But many people firmly believed that Sun Wukong would come, because it was Sun Wukong who had appeared and destroyed the alien steel giant that had appeared. Therefore, Sun Wukong would definitely come. People fled in panic, while aliens chased them in flying vehicles, screaming and firing beams at the fleeing humans below, as if amusing themselves. But the most terrifying thing was the mechanical worms. 7 or 8 of them had already descended. Not only could they fire downward beams, but their bodies could also serve as weapons. As they flew past buildings, their solid bodies scratched them, sending them collapsing to the ground. Boom 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 echoed, stirring up clouds of dust. People could only flee frantically on the ground. The scene was a scene of civilization being crushed. Before the alien civilization, Earth's humanity was like ants. In a short period of time, the Chitauri army had unleashed countless soldiers, their presence filling the sky. The city was gradually being destroyed. Tony rushed to the location where the space tunnel had been opened. Seeing the device clearly before him, Tony's pupils constricted, and he took a deep breath. Space device? Tony didn't know why the Mandarin had used the Tesseract to create a space tunnel to allow alien civilizations to attack Earth. But he wasn't thinking about that right now. He wanted to disable the device to prevent further alien attacks. Boom, but just then, a voice came from behind him. Jarvis immediately took control of the suit and carried Tony into the air. Bang! A green beam of light struck where Tony had just stood. Tony's face darkened. If he had been a step slower, he would have been caught in a sneak attack. And the attacker from below was none other than the Mandarin. Mandarin, do you know what you're doing? Tony asked gravely. I know, the Mandarin said. Then you're absolutely mad, allowing aliens to attack Earth. Shut down this device? Tony couldn't comprehend the Mandarin's idea. Impossible, then there's no room for negotiation. Tony said no more, swooping down to engage the Mandarin once again. Boom boom boom, just then, fighter jets from the Air Force Station in Hong Kong City arrived. The army hadn't arrived so quickly. The army's reaction and response were undoubtedly swift, but no matter how swift, they couldn't outpace the destruction. As the pilots and soldiers reached Hong Kong, they were stunned by the scene on the ground. Smoke and dust billowed, a scene of apocalypse. They quickly engaged in battle, 7 fighter planes attacking the flying aliens, sending them tumbling down like rain. But the aliens were simply too numerous. And they seemed incapable of fear. Even facing the fighter planes, they swarmed forward, one after another. The 7 fighter planes barely held out for long before they were destroyed one after another. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35 The Battle Was Fierce. Chapter 35 The Battle is Fierce, 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster Chapter 35 The Battle is Fierce. Seeing this, Chen Haitian's face was filled with shock. Then, he gritted his teeth. Don't these aliens have any sense of fear? They're attacking the fighter planes one after another, without even trying to evade them. Furthermore, those giant mechanical worms haven't even attacked the fighter planes yet. If they did, the fighter planes would have had virtually no chance of fighting back. Chen Haitian was terribly anxious. This was a crushing defeat by civilization, and their civilization wasn't high enough to resist. Chen Haitian looked toward the black hole. He saw aliens still pouring out of it, flying in all directions. Why hasn't Tony shut that thing down yet? Is he in trouble? Chen Haitian thought, convinced that this must be the case. The Mandarin must be guarding the device, and Tony would have to confront him if he went over. And it seemed he had never fought the Mandarin before. Damn it, Chen Haitian was distraught. But there was nothing he could do. In this situation, he couldn't even get over there, so he couldn't help at all. You bunch of alien beasts, wait until Sun Wukong or that Tathagata Buda comes over and shows you how powerful we are, Chen Haitian thought to himself. Ding-ling-ling ding-ling-ling, but just then, a rapid phone ring rang out, as if foreshadowing something was about to happen. Chen Haitian took out his phone and answered it. Hello, this is Chen Haitian, Director. A hammer just flew over and flew directly into Thor's hands, and then he transformed. The subordinate's surprised voice came from the phone. Hammer? Transformed? Chen Haitian was stunned when he heard this. What the hell is going on? Yet, he just suddenly changed his clothes, and he looks quite handsome. And his hairstyle changed too. Chen Haitian. Suddenly, Chen Haitian thought of what Thor said during the interrogation. He was a prince of Asgard, banished to Earth by the god Odin for his misdeeds. His hammer had also arrived, and he had to find it and restore his divine power. Chen Haitian seemed to understand something. But now was not the time to dwell on such thoughts. Since Thor is the son of the god Odin, he must also have divine power. Let's get him to help. With this thought, Chen Haitian immediately said, send Thor to Xiangjiang City to help. Xiangjiang, the subordinate asked curiously. Director, what's the situation in Xiangjiang now? Why do I feel like there's so much noise over there? It's hard to explain, Chen Haitian urged. Don't ask so many questions. Hurry and arrange a plane to bring Thor here. Yes, the subordinate, realizing the urgency of the situation, stopped asking further questions. But the next second, he spoke again. This time, however, he seemed surprised, his voice trembling. Director, there's no need to arrange a plane. Thor asked me which direction Xiangjiang City is. Then he spun the hammer a few times, threw it, and flew away with it like a parabola. Chen Haitian was stunned. He hadn't expected Thor to do something like this. But he didn't think much about it. Okay, I got it, he hung up. Chen Haitian thought to himself, Thor is on his way, and having an extraordinary person to help is always a good thing. But I wonder how strong Thor is. How does he compare to Sun Wukong and Tathagata Buda? Chen Haitian pondered. However, before he could think about it, a loud noise came from outside. Open the door. Let us in, help. Open the door, hurry, hurry. The aliens are right behind us, please. Aren't you from the government? Open the door and let us in. Hearing the voices, Chen Haitian turned and saw a large crowd of citizens outside the iron gate. Young and old, some with children. They were panicked, some even crying, trying to get inside for shelter. Without a second thought, Chen Haitian shouted, what are you doing? Open the door. Let them in. Upon hearing the order, the guards hurriedly opened the iron gate. Citizens rushed in like a flood of monsters behind them. And indeed, they were. Chen Haitian looked up and saw a large number of aliens flying in spacecraft. Damn it, Chen Haitian shouted, everyone. Fight the aliens and protect the citizens. Yes, Chen Haitian led the Chinese soldiers to fight the aliens. However, their weapons were no match. The bullets had no effect on the aliens and their spacecraft. Even a bazooka could only take out one alien at best. Furthermore, bazookas are slow to reload, unlike the alien aircraft, which can rapidly fire beams. So, from the moment they engaged, Chen Haitian and his companions were at a disadvantage. Meanwhile, over the Pacific Ocean, a massive object resembling an aircraft carrier was taking flight. It was none other than the aerospace carrier developed by the United States. Captain America's Steve Rogers stood at the railing, gazing into the distance. His expression was slightly melancholic, his thoughts unsettled. For him, awakening after decades of slumber, only places like the military felt familiar. However, the sight of a heavy-duty carrier soaring through the sky now felt familiar yet both shocking and unfamiliar. Just then, Nick approached with a tablet and announced, we have at most 20 minutes to reach Xiangjiang City, China. He then held out a high-tech electronic panel and said, take a look. This is the current situation in Xiangjiang City. Captain America took the panel. Looking at the devastated city and the aliens flying through the sky, attacking the ground, Captain America's pupils shrank and he gasped. Are these aliens? Captain America was incredulous, his heart pounding. Yes, Nick nodded. He'd been surprised to learn of this. He'd never imagined the Mandarin's purpose in stealing the Tesseract was to enable aliens to attack Earth. Damn it. Nick had dealt with aliens before, so the sight of them wasn't surprising. Captain America frowned, pondered for a moment, and said, can this helicarrier get any faster? We must rush to the rescue. They need our help. Nick nodded in agreement. However, he added, our superiors have ordered us to join the battle as needed. If anything goes wrong, we must evacuate immediately. After all, this concerns our national security, and we must carefully consider this matter. And even if we want to help, we have to wait for China to ask for our help. We have to give something in return, Captain America frowned, but said nothing more. Despite his resentment, he also had the good sense to know that Nick Fury was right. The aerospace carrier soared through the sky, approaching Hong Kong City. He could even see the wormhole, its opening growing ever larger. A steady stream of aliens flew out of the wormhole, like locusts devouring a field. Bang! Tony was struck by a green beam, sent flying backward, breaking a streetlight. Pain washed over him, weakness, and panic. He struggled to stand. But then Jarvis' voice rang out, "Sir, your palladium poisoning is worsening. Please stop fighting immediately and seek treatment. If you continue like this, you could be in danger of your life." Tony stood up, acting as if he hadn't heard him. Meanwhile, the Mandarin approached, his arms folded, a smile on his face. 10 rings graced his fingers. Chapter 36, Beating the Hole. Chapter 36, Beating Mandarin 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster. Chapter 36, Beating Mandarin. Stark, you're not in the right condition, the Mandarin laughed. After the battle, he realized that something was wrong with Tony. However, it had nothing to do with him. He looked at the distant sky again and said, "Do you see the current situation? At this rate, the alien army will occupy the entire Earth within 2 days. By then, I will be the biggest hero. And you won't see that time." The Mandarin grinned. He gathered energy in his hands and was about to attack Tony. He wanted to kill Tony here. Tony's face was pale and very weak. Seeing this scene, his face changed even more. He wanted to dodge, but his body had no strength. "Damn it," Tony said angrily. But at this moment, a figure flew over at high speed and hit the Mandarin with a bang, triggering a green magic shield. The Mandarin flew backwards. Tony stared in disbelief at the sudden scene. The newcomer was a man draped in a red cape and a resemblance to armor. It was Thor. After the Tathagata Buddha freed him from his restraints, he regained his divine power and successfully summoned Mjolnir. After knocking the Mandarin away, Thor turned to look at Tony. He didn't know Tony, but simply saw what was happening and offered his assistance. But now wasn't the time to dwell on this. He had come to Xiangjiang City to help, at Chen Haitian's request. "Hey, can you shut down that thing?" Thor pointed at the azure beam of light. Tony looked in the direction he pointed, understanding what he meant, and said, "I can give it a try." "Okay," Thor said. "You shut it down and prevent too many aliens from entering Earth. I'll deal with this guy." With that, he rushed towards the Mandarin. Tony watched. He didn't recognize the man. But judging by the current situation, he wasn't an enemy. Tony didn't think twice. While the other party was holding the Mandarin hostage, he had to shut down the tunnel. Gritting his teeth, he forced his palladium-corroded body to fly, manipulating his Iron Man suit into flight towards the tunnel. Landing in front of the tunnel, Tony lost his balance and fell to the ground. Jarvis's voice rang out again, "Sir, your body has been severely corroded by the palladium. Please leave the battlefield immediately and seek medical attention." Tony, bracing himself with his hands, forced himself to stand, forcing a smile. "Jarvis, if I leave now, who'll shut down the tunnel? With more and more aliens attacking Earth, how long can Earth hold out?" The AI, Jarvis, fell silent. Tony said nothing more. He glanced at the control panel, his hands working on the keyboard, attempting to shut down the tunnel. Bang! Thor's hammer smashed into the Mandarin, lightning flashing. Even with his magical shield, the Mandarin was wounded by Thor's overwhelming force. He spat out a mouthful of blood, flew backward, and crashed into the rubble. Thor crushed the Mandarin. No matter how powerful the Mandarin's magic was, it was no match for Thor's divine strength. He was Odin's son. Bang! The Mandarin used his magic to shake the surrounding rocks aside. He was in a state of disarray, panting, his clothes tattered, his hair tangled in curls from the lightning, and blood drenched his mouth. He roared in anger, "You're courting death. The alien army is attacking Earth. You dare to attack me? You won't survive tomorrow." The Mandarin didn't know who the other man was, but he knew they were doomed. Thor frowned, swung his hammer, and was about to charge again. But just then, he saw an alien flying towards him in a spacecraft, and behind it sat a familiar figure. Loki. Thor's pupils shrank, his heart leaping. He was surprised to see Loki on Earth. Why is Loki here? Suddenly, a possibility occurred to Thor. Could it be that Loki did all this? The thought suddenly filled him with disbelief. Where did Loki get such a massive army? But then, another thought struck him. and his face suddenly changed, his heart pounding. He quickly berated Loki. Loki, what are you doing? Are you crazy? Loki heard someone calling him and looked down. It was Thor on the ground. And how had he regained his divine power? Loki was stunned for a moment. Then, his lips curled up, and he let the thought go. Even with his divine power restored, what good could it do? Could he handle an army of Chitauri? With this in mind, Loki ordered the Chitauri soldier to fly over in a flying vehicle, which then landed above Thor. From the aircraft, Loki gazed down at Thor from above. He was dressed in regal attire and sported a golden crown, making him look like a king. He said, "Thor, it's been a long time. Loki, did you do all this? What do you want? What do you want?" Loki smiled. "Of course, I want to become the ruler of Earth." "Oh, and I want to kill you and that monkey king. You're crazy." Thor heard this and urged him hastily, "Stop right now and return to Asgard with me to face your punishment, or you'll regret it." "Regret? Why should I regret it? Earth isn't as simple as you think. If you want to become the ruler of Earth, you'll inevitably anger those people. They're not something you, nor these alien armies, can resist." Thor was referring to Monkey King and Tathagata Buda. If they took action, these alien armies, and Loki, would be useless. "Ho ha ho ha!" Loki roared with laughter, as if he'd heard something funny. "Thor, this isn't like you. How come after Odin imprisoned your powers and banished you to this planet, you've become so timid?" "Ha ha ha! I've already inquired about the strength of Sun Wukong and the others. They're not that strong. If they dare show up, my Chitauri army will destroy them." Loki, Thor, hearing the other person addressing his father by name, shouted, "Watch your words. He's your father." "He's not my father." But Loki's expression suddenly changed, becoming furious. Even Thor was stunned by these words. He hadn't expected Loki's reaction to be so strong. Seeing Thor's stunned expression, Loki realized he had lost his composure. He snorted coldly, his earlier smug demeanor restored. "Thor, I will soon be the master of this planet. No one, not even you, can stop me. If that Sun Wukong dares to show up, I will kill him. Even if he gets scared and hides, I will find him and kill him." With that, he refused to waste any more time with Thor. He ordered the alien soldiers to fly away in their aircraft. "Loki! Loki!" Thor shouted, distraught as he watched Loki fly away. He wanted to call Loki back, to take him back to Asgard before he could provoke those people. But Loki refused to speak to him. Chapter 37 Tony is in danger. Chapter 37, Tony is in danger, 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster Chapter 37, Tony is in danger. Damn it, where did Loki hear this? Thor was distraught. He actually said that Sun Wukong and Tathagata Buda were not powerful. Isn't this nonsense? How could they not be powerful? He swung his hammer and was about to chase Loki, stop his foolish behavior, and bring him back to Asgard. Bang! But suddenly, at this moment, a green light shot out and hit him directly in the back, knocking him away. Bang! It hit a parked car on the side of the road, directly knocking it 2 or 3 meters. Thor's back hurt, but he was not seriously injured. He was Odin's son, and now that he had regained his divine power, his physical strength was naturally formidable. This level of attack was not enough to hurt him. Thor stood up from the ground and looked at the Mandarin who had attacked him. He looked displeased. "Looks like we have to finish him off first." Thor didn't hesitate any longer, charging at the Mandarin. Seeing Thor charging, the Mandarin, without a second thought, roared and charged forward. He'd overheard Thor and Loki's conversation, and at first he'd been surprised. From their conversation, it seemed Thor and Loki were brothers, but it seemed Loki wanted to kill Thor. And as a slave, how could he not fulfill his master's wish? Bang! But as they engaged, Thor's hammer struck, evoking a green shield. The Mandarin spat out blood again, flew backward, and crashed into a shop. But in an instant, he burst out again. Thor showed no mercy, continuing the fight. On Tony's side, boom boom boom, the space tunnel device continued to rumble, showing no sign of shutting down. Tony kept fiddling with the control panel, but to no avail. He couldn't find a shutdown program, as if it were a one-way system with no shutdown procedure. And indeed, it was. Because, in a rush, the Mandarin had built a neutered version from the start. Besides, he hadn't considered shutting down the device. Tony had tried other methods, like firing energy beams at the Tesseract, the space-powered energy source. But it was useless. The beam struck the Tesseract and bounced back, striking him. The clacking of keyboards continued. Tony kept trying, but still to no avail. Finally, Tony clenched his fists and smashed the console. Bang! He finally gave up. Damn it, Tony exclaimed angrily. His palladium poisoning was worsening, and a black tinge could clearly be seen below his neck. Furthermore, he felt increasingly weak and dizzy. In his emotional turmoil, he couldn't even stand, and he stumbled backward, falling to the ground. Then, Thor flew in. He dispatched the Mandarin. Thor landed on the ground, and seeing Tony slumped, his heart skipped a beat. Although he had anticipated the outcome, he still asked, unwilling to give up, "Can't this beam of light be turned off?" Tony shook his head. Thor's face darkened. He turned to look at the space tunnel device. After a moment's hesitation, he gritted his teeth and rushed forward, raising his hammer and smashing it against the tesseract. With a resounding bang, a blue recoil force, mingled with lightning, struck him, sending him flying. Bang! Thor slammed to the ground. A sharp pain shot through his chest, as if struck by a giant's fist. Damn it! He stood up, about to think of another solution. Suddenly, he was targeted by aliens, and a large number of them attacked him. His pupils constricted. But there was nothing he could do but fight on. Bang! 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 Explosions echoed everywhere, and the situation became even worse than before. Chen Haitian led the others in a desperate struggle against the Chitauri soldiers, but due to the disparity in weaponry and numbers, they were completely at a disadvantage. "Director, we're almost collapsing," the subordinate shouted anxiously. "Even if we can't, we have to hold on," Chen Haitian shouted as he fired. "The Xiangjiang City army has been dispatched, and Stark has gone to shut down that beam. If he shuts it down and cuts off the alien army's transportation, everything will be much better." Chen Haitian's words were completely useless encouragement. Given the current situation, even if the beam was shut down, countless alien soldiers had already descended on Earth, which would still be a huge problem. The others knew this, but at this point, it was difficult to say anything. But then, a red figure flew towards them from a direction where no alien soldiers had been seen. With a bang, as if it hadn't braked, it fell directly to the ground and slid several meters. Seeing this, Chen Haitian's heart skipped a beat. "Stark! What's going on?" Without time to think, he rushed forward, struggling to turn Tony over, and asked, "Stark, what's wrong with you?" "Nothing," Tony said weakly. Then he said, "Jarvis, open the mech." Yes, with a hum of mechanical whirring, the suit opened. Tony appeared before Chen Haitian. But upon seeing Tony's condition, Chen Haitian's pupils constricted, startled. "What's wrong with you?" Tony's face was pale, his eyes dark, and he looked incredibly weak. Strangest of all, the veins in his neck were completely black. Tony didn't answer Chen Haitian's question, but instead spoke about the space tunnel device. "I can't shut it down. I can't help you." "What?" Chen Haitian's face fell. If it couldn't be shut down, it meant an endless stream of alien armies would attack Earth. Chen Haitian found it hard to accept. He wanted to say, "Aren't you a super genius? How could you not shut it down?" But seeing Tony's expression, he swallowed the words back. Tony must have tried his best to look like this. As soon as Tony finished speaking, his eyes closed, his head tilted, and he fainted. Startled, Chen Haitian shouted, "Hurry! Help! Carry him to safety!" Boom! 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 Loki sat atop his flying vehicle, surveying the battlefield like a king. But even with this situation, he was thinking, "Thor, you'll never be able to defeat me. Once I become the master of this planet, my next plan is to retake Asgard. And father, just wait and see. After retaking Asgard, I'll wage war on Jotunheim and completely destroy it." Loki's lips curled up. Suddenly, he noticed that Earth's humans were fighting fiercely in a certain place. And he saw a familiar face. "It's him," Loki said, catching sight of Chen Haitian. Earlier, when he had sent 18 destroyers to Earth to kill Thor, Chen Haitian had appeared with his soldiers, attacking the destroyers. Through the destroyer's vision, he saw Chen Haitian. "He must be a Chinese official," Loki said with a smile. An idea struck him. Immediately, he ordered the Zeta soldiers to fly over an aircraft. Chapter 38 The Shadow of Tathagata Buda appears. Chapter 38 The Apparition of Tathagata Buda appears. 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster. Chapter 38 The Apparition of Tathagata Buda appears. Boom, boom, boom. Chen Haitian had just finished settling Tony down and walked out. Tony was in dire condition and needed immediate medical attention or he would die. But in his current situation, not only was he unable to get to the hospital, but even if he did, it would be useless. Aliens were attacking everywhere. Damn it, Chen Haitian gritted his teeth. Director, we're running out of ammunition. Just then, a subordinate's cry rang out. Chen Haitian looked over and witnessed a scene he would never forget. With a bang, a beam of light struck the soldier's side, its powerful impact sending several nearby soldiers flying. One of the soldiers fell to the ground in front of Chen Haitian with a thud. His face and back were burned black, his eyes still open, his eyes wide open in death. Chen Haitian was stunned for a moment, then a wave of heartbreaking grief washed over him. He screamed in rage, his emotions uncontrollable. He raised his assault rifle and began to fire at the Chitauri soldiers in the sky, venting his fury. Come on. You alien beasts. Come on, but it was of little use, the bullets were barely effective against the Chitauri soldiers. Just then, Loki flew over. He took in the situation below, a look of contempt on his face. With a wave of his hand, he blocked all the bullets. He ordered the surrounding Chitauri soldiers to halt their attacks and not interfere with his show-off. Then, he addressed Chen Haitian, you really only know how to put up a useless resistance. With weapons like this, can you really defeat a Chitauri army? Loki's words were a mocking one. If such weapons could defeat a Chitauri army, then they wouldn't be able to conquer planets and seize the Infinity Stones across the universe. Chen Haitian's fury calmed slightly at this. He stared at Loki and asked in a deep voice, who are you? He didn't know Loki, nor did he know that this alien invasion was actually caused by Loki. Me. Loki smiled, stood up, and opened his arms. I will soon be the master of this planet. He lowered his head and pointed his mind scepter at Chen Haitian, saying, and you will all be my slaves. Put down your weapons and submit to me. Otherwise, you will die, not even slaves. You're dreaming, Chen Haitian shouted. He now understood that the man before him was the mastermind behind all this. The Mandarin was merely a subordinate. You're courting death, Loki glared, his brow furious, his face etched with displeasure. A weak, lowly being dared to contradict him. He immediately used his scepter to launch a beam of light attack, which, with a bang, shot towards Chen Haitian. Chen Haitian's pupils shrank, his face darkening. As a mere human, he couldn't possibly dodge such an attack. Captain, Captain, the surviving soldiers shouted in shock at Chen Haitian. They tried to advance, but it was too late. Bang, an invisible force spread out in all directions. Soldiers who tried to charge were sent flying, falling to the ground. A cloud of blue smoke filled the air around Chen Haitian. Seeing this, Loki sneered, you fool. You dare to talk back to a god. He believed Chen Haitian was doomed. After all, no human on Earth could survive such an attack. He turned his gaze to the remaining soldiers and said coldly, see? This is the fate of not submitting to me? Do you want to live or die? Hearing this, the remaining soldiers snapped out of their grief. With a determined look, they stared at Loki, their disregard for life and death. The meaning was self-evident. Seeing this reaction, Loki chuckled in anger. All right, since you want to die, then I'll grant your wish. He was about to order the Chitauri soldiers to continue their attack, but suddenly, at that moment, bursts of Buddhist chanting echoed from the heavens and earth, as if countless people were chanting something ethereal and mysterious. Loki was stunned. What was that sound? Then, he seemed to see something, and his face suddenly changed with shock. Chen Haitian, shrouded in blue smoke, suddenly emitted rays of golden light, dispersing the blue smoke and revealing what lay within. Chen Haitian was unharmed, a golden shield protecting him. This golden shield, shimmering with golden light, looked holy and mysterious. Compared to the Mandarin's green shield, it was like the difference between a luxury car and a tractor. What is that? Loki came to his senses, his brows furrowed, his eyes filled with confusion. He had not expected this. The surviving soldiers around him were also stunned. What was going on? Could the director also be a transcendent? Chen Haitian was at the center of the shield. What is this? Honestly, he was completely stunned, unable to believe the bizarre scene before him. Just now, Loki had attacked him, and suddenly, this had happened. He hadn't even reacted. Then, he saw something floating above him. Suddenly, his heart trembled, and realization flashed in his eyes. I remember. The Tathagata Buddha once said that Earth would soon face a crisis, and then he gave me a scroll, saying it would protect the area. This is the scroll, Chen Haitian looked at it excitedly. Ever since arriving in Xiangjiang City, he'd been busy planning the capture of the Mandarin, and now with the alien invasion, he'd forgotten about it. If Loki hadn't caused the scroll to automatically fly out to protect him, he wouldn't have even remembered he was carrying the scroll given by the Tathagata Buddha. It's safe now, Chen Haitian exclaimed excitedly. Unlike Chen Haitian, Loki had no idea what this golden shield was. But at that moment, the scroll suddenly burst into flames. Chen Haitian's eyes widened, his heart lurching as his excitement abruptly ended. Could it be? Was the sutra about to end? But the next second, a swastika emerged from the burning scroll, growing ever larger. Within seconds, it covered the entire sky of Xiangjiang City. A massive, transparent golden shield, like a golden bowl, enveloped Xiangjiang City. The Chitauri soldiers, unprepared to invade the city, collided with the shield, resulting in the destruction of their aircraft and the deaths of all on board. Explosions erupted everywhere. Simultaneously, a colossal Buddha figure appeared. His immense form stood guard over the golden shield. Buddhist chants echoed throughout the heavens and earth, and above the Buddha's shadow, mirage-like scenes unfolded. It seemed as if the earth was in ancient times, with countless ancient people kneeling in reverent worship. The scent of incense emanated from them, gathering in the sky. But it seems that there are other scenes that have not been revealed. But even so, this scene is still shocking. Chapter 39 Everyone is shocked. Chapter 39 Everyone was shocked. 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster Chapter 39 Everyone was shocked. The shadow of Tathagata Buddha, with his hands clasped together, had a compassionate look. It was exactly the same as the Tathagata Buddha played by Lin Feng before. Amitabha. Then, the shadow of Tathagata Buddha chanted a Buddhist name. The grand and solemn voice spread in all directions. At this moment, it seemed that there was only this one voice left in the world. The people who were fleeing stopped and stared at the shadow of Tathagata Buddha in amazement. Some even had tears on their faces, frozen in tears. It took them a long while to come back to their senses. Oh my God, what is that? So shocking? Yes, it looks like a monk. Could it be, like Sun Wukong, a figure from our ancient times? Such a magical scene, it must be. SHH. That's too shocking. Is he here to save us? Yes. Since he's appeared, he must be here to save us. Great. Great, but why didn't Sun Wukong show up? I think he's busy with something. There was a flurry of discussion. Ancient One, upon seeing the shadow of the Tathagata Buddha, froze in his tracks. He couldn't believe his eyes, he could actually witness such a scene. Ancient One was the supreme mage, a man of great experience. Even he had such a reaction, which only showed how incredible the appearance of the Tathagata Buddha's shadow was. However, this isn't a real person, it must have been created by some profound power. But he must also be a figure from ancient times, like Sun Wukong, now awakened, said Ancient One. He saw it, but he didn't know what to call this ability to manifest shadows. He sensed it wasn't magic, but an inexplicable, ancient, and time-honored ability. This power was truly incredible. So powerful that it made her mind uneasy. He also sensed that the mirage-like scene above the shadow must have occurred in ancient times, and that much of this scene had yet to be revealed. This was his intuition as Earth's supreme sorcerer. That Lin Feng is right. Figures from the ancient times will awaken one after another. First it was Sun Wukong, and now it's this person. Ancient One's eyes were deep. He could sense that the shadow's true form was an extremely powerful being, yet a calm and peaceful being. This was a good thing. But Sun Wukong's appearance already caused a discrepancy in my predictions of Earth's future, and now another has appeared. Ancient One secretly realized that he might no longer be able to use the time stone to predict Earth's future. Bang! Thor smashed an alien into the air with his hammer. Then, he landed on the ground and looked up at the distant shadow, a look of shock and excitement on his face. It's him. He's appeared. Thor recognized the Tathagata Buddha. The power displayed by Lin Feng, impersonating the Tathagata Buddha to free him from Odin's imprisonment, was something he would never forget. He was also grateful to the Tathagata Buddha. If it hadn't been for the Tathagata Buddha's help in freeing him and restoring his divine power, he didn't know what he would have done. But then, a sudden thought struck him, and his face changed. Loki. He glanced around, searching for Loki, but he couldn't find him. Furthermore, a large number of Chitauri soldiers were descending upon him, and even a giant mechanical worm was flying towards him. The golden shield only blocked the Chitauri army from attacking the city. But there were already many Chitauri soldiers inside. Damn it, Thor cursed, swinging his hammer to fight back. Hiss! On the aerospace carrier, Captain America and Nick gasped in unison, their eyes filled with disbelief. Far ahead, in the distance, they saw the shadow of the massive figure, sitting cross-legged. Several of the city's flagship buildings nearby were no taller than it. And above the shadow, a mirage-like phenomenon loomed. Behind it, a golden, transparent shield enveloped the entire city. Aliens outside couldn't get in. Any contact with the shield would result in a sudden explosion, with the aircraft and crew destroyed. What the hell is this? Has China actually developed something this high-tech? Captain America shook his head in disbelief. He'd previously been secretly proud of developing the aerospace carrier for the United States. But if China had developed such technology, what was there for him to be proud of? Upon hearing this, Nick turned to look at Captain America in surprise. Suddenly, it occurred to him that Captain America hadn't been following the online news, so he wasn't aware of China's current situation. Seeing this, it was only natural for him to think that way. With this thought in mind, he explained, "This isn't technology developed by China. To be more precise, it's not the power of technology." What? Not the power of technology? Captain America was stunned and asked what was going on. Nick explained the story of Sun Wukong appearing in China, then went on to explain what Lin Feng had said at the lecture. Captain America was stunned, his heart agitated. Seeing Captain America's reaction, Nick added, "Now you understand why I asked you to be mentally prepared before we set off." Captain America remained stunned. He paused, then said, "Mr. Fury, am I dreaming? Am I still in the glacier, unexcavated?" He looked up at Nick. Captain America preferred to doubt he was still there, unexcavated, rather than believe such a far-fetched theory. He had previously considered Red Skull to be outrageous enough. I hadn't expected something even more outrageous than his, 100, 1,000 times more outrageous. Nick ignored him, letting him process it slowly. Turning his head back towards Yangjiang City, Nick stared at the monstrous figure and thought, this person must be like Sun Wukong, a figure from ancient times awakened. But can he eliminate these aliens? It seems a little iffy. He's been completely still, as if he's merely protecting Yangjiang City. But it's useless if this continues. How long can this light shield last? Where's Sun Wukong? Meanwhile, Lin Feng, sensing the activation of the scripture, raised his lips. Simultaneously, the story he'd written about Sun Wukong's rampage in heaven had just concluded. My turn. System, place Sun Wukong, Lin Feng said. Yes, master. With that, a flash of red light appeared. He transformed into Sun Wukong. He clenched his fist, feeling the power. After Sun Wukong's role-playing privileges were upgraded to level 2, his strength also reached 20%. He's indeed stronger than before. After Lin Feng defeated the Destroyer, Sun Wukong's role-playing points were enough to upgrade his role-playing privileges, so he upgraded his role-playing privileges to level 2. Lin Feng smiled faintly, and without further delay, he leaped and disappeared into the air, leaving only a wisp of green smoke. Chapter 40 You can only defend, but not attack. Chapter 40 You can only defend, not attack. 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster. Chapter 40 You can only defend, not attack. Chen Haitian was shocked, staring at the shadowy figure of Tathagata Buddha in disbelief. This scene was truly shocking. After a long while, he came back to his senses, his eyes lit up with joy. Great! There's hope. Chen Haitian felt saved the moment he saw the shadowy figure of Tathagata Buddha appear. Meanwhile, Tony had woken up. But he was still very weak. His palladium poisoning hadn't improved at all. There was no way to get him to the hospital right now. But when he saw the scene outside the window, he was shocked and couldn't believe his eyes. What is that? He gasped. Could it be, like Sun Wukong, a figure from ancient times? His pale face was filled with shock and disbelief. Tony had previously believed that only those ancient times with advanced technology and advanced genetic modification techniques could have transformed Sun Wukong into that form. But now, seeing the Buddha, he suddenly felt something else. This wasn't something genetic modification could achieve, but rather some unknown ability. A phrase suddenly struck him. The end of science is theology. Is there really such a thing as theology? Tony thought to himself. Then, A wave of unconsciousness washed over him, and he passed out again. Loki's face was filled with shock, unable to believe what he was seeing. What had he seen? Suddenly, a thought struck him, and a look of realization crossed his face. I see. This person must be like Sun Wukong, a figure from ancient Earth. Now awakened, at this thought, Loki's disdain returned. But just as he was about to make his next move, a commanding voice boomed in his ears. Loki. Hearing this, Loki jumped, his soul nearly trembling. But he quickly regained his composure, wondering, it's Odin. Why is he suddenly looking for me? Odin's voice rang out again, urging him, leave Earth. Don't stay there any longer. Loki thought for a moment, initially dismissing the question, but still asked, puzzled, why? You can't afford to offend that phantom being. Leave now, or you'll die there. Hearing this, Loki chuckled. He'd assumed Odin was onto something, but hadn't expected this. He'd already inquired with the great scholar Lin Feng about the situation. These ancient figures weren't particularly formidable. They were no match for his Chitauri army. A thought struck him, and the corner of his mouth curled up as he said, Odin, what did you call me? I'm your father, Odin scolded. Loki remained unfazed by the rebuke, smiling. You've been alarmist since you contacted me, yet you didn't even ask how I survived the dimensional rift beneath the Rainbow Bridge. Haha. Never mind, let's not talk about that. You want me to leave Earth quickly. Aren't you afraid that after I conquer Earth, my next battle will be against Asgard? Don't worry, sooner or later I'll return to Asgard and wage war against Jotunheim. Enough, Loki. Stop talking about this. Leave Earth now, Odin urged anxiously. But this time, Loki didn't reply. Then, Heimdall's voice rang out, King, your highness Loki, has severed contact. Hearing this, Odin froze for a moment. Then, he sighed deeply, gripped his scepter, and a look of helplessness and heartache crossed his face. Loki had vanished after jumping from the Rainbow Bridge, and Odin had indeed believed him dead. But now, seeing that Loki wasn't dead, he was overjoyed. He risked his life to get Heimdall to look toward Earth and contact Loki, hoping he would stop his foolish behavior. But to his surprise, the child refused to listen. Odin shook his head, the gloom growing thicker. With the connection severed and Odin's voice no longer in his ears, Loki fell silent. He had always wanted to prove to his father that he was no less capable than Thor. But now he knew he could never compare to Thor, because he was the child of a frost giant. Shaking his head, Loki let go of these thoughts. All that was in the past. The present was the important matter of the future. He gathered his temper, looked at Chen Haitian, and said in a stern and mocking tone, HMPH, with such limited ability, you think you can hinder my Chitauri army? Immediately, he raised his scepter and commanded the Chitauri army outside the Golden Shield, listen up, everyone outside. Smash this man and this Golden Shield. With that, countless Chitauri soldiers stopped in midair, facing the Golden Shield in the image of the Tathagata Buddha. Including the gigantic mechanical worm, they also attacked the Golden Shield. The scene was magnificent and spectacular. Loki sneered. Chen Haitian took a breath, his face filled with surprise. Bang! 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 The next moment, all the Chitauri soldiers, including the mechanical worm, launched their attack. Countless energy beams bombarded the Golden Shield in the image of the Tathagata Buddha, creating a resounding sound. However, instead of being shattered, they only stirred up ripples like water, emitting a deep, muffled sound. And after the attack subsided, things quickly returned to normal. However, the sky full of Chitauri soldiers simultaneously and continuously fired beams at the Golden Shield and the image of the Tathagata Buddha, creating an even more spectacular scene. The Golden Shield was like the surface of water, and the attack beams were like raindrops falling on the water, creating a myriad of ripples. The sound of bang, bang, bang was incessant. But despite the shock, the attacks had no effect at all, and Loki's brow furrowed. No effect? Chen Haitian had been a little worried that such a display would destroy it. But after seeing the other party's attack had no effect, he felt relieved again. He straightened his back and said with a smile, Hey, what did you just say? You want to destroy this Golden Shield? Chen Haitian's words were full of sarcasm. He was now full of confidence. Upon hearing this, Loki's face turned cold and displeasure appeared. He heard the other party's sarcasm. But suddenly, a thought occurred to him, and his anger turned into a smile. He said, What? Do you think you are safe? Look around carefully, many of my soldiers are inside the Golden Shield. Chen Haitian heard this and remembered the previous incident. Even though the golden shield covered Xiangjiang city and prevented the alien soldiers from descending, the city was already full of alien soldiers. Looking around, the flames of war caused by the alien soldiers were still everywhere, and several giant mechanical insects were flying around the city, constantly destroying the tall buildings. Chen Haitian's face froze. Seeing his reaction, Loki, still confident of victory, laughed heartily. And don't forget, this city is protected by this golden shield, but what about the other cities? My soldiers can still attack them. Loki saw that this giant phantom was truly just an illusion, not a real person. Furthermore, it seemed to have only defensive capabilities, not the ability to kill. But what good was that? There were other cities that could attack. Chapter 41 Where's the Fighting Buddha? Chapter 41 Where's the Fighting Buddha? 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster. Chapter 41 Where's the Fighting Buddha? Loki looked smug, raised his scepter, and said to the Chitauri army that was still attacking the Golden Light Shield and the Phantom of the Tathagata Buddha, listen up, everyone outside, attack other cities. Boom boom boom, the order was issued. All the Chitauri soldiers outside immediately stopped attacking and flew towards the mainland in unison. The Chitauri army flying all over the sky looked like a locust plague. Seeing this, Chen Haitian's pupils shrank, and his face was full of astonishment. Xiangjiang city has been destroyed, and now they are going to attack other cities. Ha ha ha, Loki roared with laughter, looking up to the heavens. What can you do now? All you can do is stare at me. But what good is that? It won't be long before my Chitauri army captures the next city. This planet will be mine sooner or later. Loki's voice, enchanted with magic to diffuse and penetrate, carried far. The survivors all heard it, and they also saw the aliens flying across the sky outside the golden light barrier. They froze in shock, and then panic set in again. It's over, it's over. These aliens are attacking the next city. Woo, woo, woo. Let's not talk about that for now. There are so many aliens in this golden shield. What should we do? Is this golden shadow really only defensive? It has no offensive capabilities. I don't know. Where's Sun Wukong? Why hasn't Sun Wukong arrived yet? If he comes, we'll definitely be saved. Looking at this, even Sun Wukong can't guarantee victory. Look at all these aliens. They're like a swarm of locusts. And there are those giant, mechanical worms. They're hideous and terrifying. They look tough to deal with. Woo, woo, woo. What should we do? Is Earth really going to be taken over by aliens? What will become of us? Will we become slaves? Everyone was talking, panicking and fearful again. Thor, hearing Loki's arrogant words, was anxious as he dealt with the alien soldiers. Damn it, this Loki is really testing the limits of his own demise. Isn't this just angering that Tathagata Buddha? At that moment, a commanding voice echoed in his ears. Thor, father. Thor's whole body trembled at the sound, his mind blanking for a moment. Fortunately, he quickly recovered, dodging an alien soldier's attack and throwing his hammer at it. With a bang, it knocked it off the aircraft, then reached out to recall the hammer. Odin's voice rang out again, take care of yourself. Don't provoke that golden shadow. Thor's heart trembled. He instantly realized that his father must know everything. Now suddenly contacting him was a reminder. He asked, what about Loki, Alice? I tried to persuade Loki to stop, but he didn't listen. Thor, I know, Thor replied after a long pause. His expression was complex. From his father's words, he could already imagine Loki's reaction at that moment. He certainly didn't believe what his father said. No one can persuade Loki now, Thor said helplessly. After contacting his eldest son, Odin instructed Heimdall not to look toward Earth again, lest the golden figure's true form appear and discover someone was spying on Earth, potentially causing displeasure. Heimdall said nothing, silently obeying the king's instructions and not looking toward Earth again. Chen Haitian's face changed drastically. With so many alien soldiers, it wouldn't take long to destroy the next city. Loki, seeing Chen Haitian's silence and a look of shock on his face, laughed again. Ha ha ha, are you scared now? I'll give you one more chance. Submit to me, kneel before me, and I'll spare your life. Loki cast his spell again, amplifying and penetrating his voice, instantly echoing in all directions. Everyone heard, filled with despair and fear. Chen Haitian gritted his teeth, his anger surging. Immediately, he turned to look at the Buddha's shadowy figure and prayed sincerely and devoutly. Buddha, if you truly possess the power of protection, please protect us. Chen Haitian wasn't sure if his prayer would avail. But he had no other choice but to give it a try. Seeing Chen Haitian staring at the Buddha's shadowy figure, Loki guessed what he was thinking. But he dismissed him with a dismissive tone. What? You still think this shadowy figure can help you? Ha ha ha, you're dreaming. This shadowy figure is clearly just bluffing. All this fuss, only to be defensive in the end. What good is that? Loki's smile was thick, his words dripping with sarcasm. But then, he heard a voice that startled him. Amitabha, the Buddha's shadowy figure spoke again after appearing. Where is the fighting Buddha? The Buddha's words, solemn and majestic, spread in all directions. Loki was startled. Upon hearing this, the survivors were collectively stunned. They quickly reacted, but their faces were filled with confusion. Fighting Buddha? Who is that? What was this golden figure suddenly calling for? Was he calling for help? Everyone was surprised, confused, and excited. However, some people simply didn't react at all. This was all so sudden. Chen Haitian was stunned. He hadn't expected such a sudden event. He quickly came to his senses. Could it be that his prayers had worked? Had the other party called for help? But who was this fighting Buddha? Was he the third ancient figure to awaken? That title seemed quite impressive. Chen Haitian pondered, feeling excited. Loki was also surprised when he heard this, curious about this fighting Buddha. However, a sudden thought quickly calmed him down. He looked around but didn't see any fighting Buddha, so he sneered at the shadow of Tathagata Buddha. Haha, where's the fighting Buddha you mentioned? Not to mention that he didn't come. Even if he came, what's the use? I already know the strength of you guys. If you have the guts, just show up and see how my Chitauri army will destroy you. Loki looked confident and arrogant, as if he was invincible with the Chitauri army in his hands. In fact, he did have the capital to be arrogant. The Chitauri conquered the universe, searched for the Infinity Stones, and destroyed the civilizations of countless planets. This was enough to show their strength. And just as he finished speaking, suddenly, a familiar and unruly voice rang out between heaven and earth. Hey! Don't be so arrogant, you evildoers. Son, I'm here. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 42, Killing All Around. Chapter 42, Massacre, 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster. Chapter 42, Massacre. As soon as these words were spoken, they spread in all directions. All the survivors heard the voice and were collectively stunned. Then, they were immediately filled with surprise and joy. It was him. The fighting Buddha turned out to be Sun Wukong. He had finally arrived. Chen Haitian was also surprised and excited when he heard this. He knew who the fighting Buddha was. He hurriedly looked around at the sky, trying to see where Sun Wukong was coming from. Thor was stunned for a moment. Then, he realized it too. The fighting Buddha was actually Sun Wukong. Loki was stunned for a moment, not expecting this. But he quickly recovered and a smile rose at his face. Just in time, Loki sneered. He had been wondering who this fighting Buddha was, and had not expected it to be Sun Wukong. However, this was exactly what he wanted. He had wanted to kill Sun Wukong in the first place. This saved him the trouble of looking for him later. Chen Haitian looked around excitedly, eager to see where Sun Wukong was coming from. Suddenly, he saw the distant western sky a fiery red, as if painted by some strange force. But it was clearly morning, so it couldn't possibly be the result of sunset. Realizing something, Chen Haitian took a deep breath and peered intently. Beneath the vibrant sky, a fiery crimson light sped towards him at breakneck speed. While not as spectacular as the Buddha's ethereal appearance, it was still breathtaking enough. Boom, boom, boom. Lin Feng, portraying Sun Wukong, transformed into fiery crimson light and soared at such speed that the air erupted in a roaring roar. The surrounding clouds, buffeted by the powerful gusts of wind, instantly spun apart, seemingly making way. In this scene, the clouds swung back, and the sky was once again painted a fiery crimson. Lin Feng, portraying Sun Wukong, seemed to be approaching with unmatched force. All the survivors, witnessing the scene, were filled with awe. Oh shit, is that red light him? Of course it is. Didn't you hear him shout, here comes old Sun? But isn't Sun Wukong's title the Great Sage equaling heaven? Why is he called the Fighting Buddha? And who is this golden figure? How did he summon Sun Wukong? Yeah, I'm curious too, don't get too excited yet. Sun Wukong might not be able to handle so many aliens. And there are those mechanical worm-like creatures, which look difficult to deal with. Huh? No way. Seeing Sun Wukong appear, some were ecstatic. While others were delighted, they were also curious. Why did the golden figure call Sun Wukong the Fighting Buddha, and why did he rush over just by calling him? What was the relationship between these two? Others were worried that Sun Wukong would not be able to defeat this alien army. The alien army was simply too numerous as locusts in a locust plague. The Chitauri soldiers also witnessed the approaching fiery red light and froze in midair, their curiosity and wonder swirling around them. Meanwhile, aboard the aerospace carrier, Nick and Captain America gazed in astonishment at the distant sky, its fiery crimson hue deeply captivating their eyes. Captain America had already been stunned by the vision of the Tathagata Buddha. Now, witnessing such a magnificent and miraculous sight for the second time, he was completely convinced that this wasn't the power of technology, but some mysterious force. Perhaps a mystical power from ancient China. Mr. Fury, is this the Sun Wukong you mentioned earlier? Captain America asked in surprise. But isn't he the great sage equaling heaven? Why is he also called the Fighting Buddha? He had just heard the Tathagata Buddha's vision speak. Nick had previously explained Sun Wukong to him. Nick nodded, adding, I'm not sure about that. Perhaps both the great sage equaling heaven and the Fighting Buddha are Sun Wukong. Captain America remained silent, his gaze shone with disbelief. Nick frowned. But suddenly, he thought of something, his face changed drastically, and he quickly took out the walkie-talkie and gave an order, quick. Return. Stay away from the Chinese waters, quick. Nick's tone suddenly became urgent, as if something bad had happened. Captain America frowned when he heard it, not understanding what was going on. But before he could ask, a serious voice came from the communicator, sounding like a superior. Fury, why do you want to return? The other party asked. Nick said anxiously. Sun Wukong appeared. What if we continue to stay here and Sun Wukong thinks we are in the same group as the aliens, and then he attacks us? The other party was silent. Captain America next to him also took a breath and realized this. Yes. What should we do then? After a pause, the other party continued, however, this time we've been able to observe Sun Wukong and the others closely. Perhaps we can gain some important information or replicate their abilities. That's why I'm not allowing them to return. Besides, if something like that were to happen, you can negotiate and explain it to Sun Wukong. I'm sorry, sir. I won't risk the lives of my crew. With that, Nick decisively hung up the line and continued to give the order to return. Captain America remained silent. He also agreed with Nick's approach. The aerospace carrier began its return. It's here. It's really here. My prayers paid off. Chen Haitian was ecstatic. He had seen that fiery red light dozens of times in real life and on video, and there was no way he could mistake it. And what was more, there was that familiar, defiant voice. Chen Haitian quickly looked back at the image of Tathagata Buddha, gratefully saying, thank you so much. He had no idea what the relationship between Tathagata Buddha and Sun Wukong was, or why he had called him the Fighting Buddha. But he knew it was Tathagata Buddha who had summoned Sun Wukong. Thor was stunned. He hadn't expected anything like this. But when he saw Sun Wukong flying towards him at breakneck speed, he gasped. I thought Sun Wukong was already formidable, but it seems I underestimated him. Just flying over here could cause such a scene. How powerful must he be? But can he destroy the Chitauri army and close the dimensional tunnel? The Chitauri soldiers are no pushovers. Thor was skeptical. If it were the Tathagata Buddha himself, arriving and taking action, he wouldn't have doubted him. He was simply too powerful. But Sun Wukong, he had doubts. Loki was also shocked at first, but a thought calmed him down. He watched the scene with a sneer on his face. Sun Wukong, I was planning to find you, but I didn't expect you to show up on your own. Let's settle our scores. Loki pointed his scepter at the rapidly approaching red light and shouted, kill that guy. Boom 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 boom. The command was given. The Chitauri army, originally set to attack the next city, charged in unison towards the incoming red light. The sight of a vast number of Chitauri soldiers charging towards the red light like a hail of arrows was truly stunning. Boom, the red light suddenly transformed into a figure. It was none other than Lin Feng, portraying Sun Wukong. Perfect timing, Lin Feng thought to himself. He had orchestrated all of this. The appearance of the Buddha's shadow and the words, "Where's the fighting Buddha?" were all intended to arouse curiosity and shock, thereby earning more shock points. His shock points were rapidly rising. However, Lin Feng no longer paid attention to this. He adjusted his mindset and focused on his role. "Hey! Where did this monster come from? How dare you act so recklessly here? Die!" Lin Feng shouted, gripping his golden cudgel tightly. Without hesitation, he charged straight at the Chitauri army. Seeing Lin Feng charging, the Chitauri army didn't even flinch. Bang 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 bang, but Lin Feng and the Chitauri army collided. Lin Feng swung the golden cudgel in his hand, hitting, smashing, poking, stabbing, and throwing. The Chitauri soldiers would instantly explode and die if they were hit. For a moment, Lin Feng rushed into an empty space, killing everyone in sight. Chapter 43 Lin Feng was surrounded by Chitauri soldiers. Chapter 43 Lin Feng is surrounded by the Chitauri. 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster. Chapter 43 Lin Feng is surrounded by the Chitauri. Seeing this, Chen Haitian took a breath, his face filled with surprise. Loki, however, still looked confident of victory. Suddenly, he ordered the Chitauri soldiers to fly their aircraft towards Lin Feng. Seeing Loki suddenly fly away, Chen Haitian's face showed surprise. But when he saw that he was flying in the direction of Sun Wukong, his surprise turned to astonishment, unsure of what Loki was going to do. Thor also saw this. He stared, unable to understand what Loki was up to. Loki flew below Lin Feng. He was inside the golden shield, while Lin Feng was outside. Loki looked at the fighting Lin Feng and sneered, "Pause. All of you disperse. I have something to say to him." With that, the Chitauri soldiers retreated like a tide, forming a circle. Lin Feng was at the center of the circle. Lin Feng paused his swing, slinging his club over his shoulder, looking down at Loki. He was perplexed, unsure of what Loki was up to. Loki met Lin Feng's gaze, a meaningful smile. "I know you're confused. Why am I here? You haven't seen me, but I have." Lin Feng was stunned. He was impersonating Sun Wukong. Where had he seen him before? But on second thought, he understood. Last time they fought the Destroyer, Loki must have seen him through the Destroyer's vision. However, since he was now impersonating Sun Wukong, he had to speak from Sun Wukong's perspective. "Where have you seen me before? Why haven't I seen you before?" Lin Feng finished, then chided him. "Let's not talk about that. Where did you come from, you monster? How dare you lead a bunch of little monsters to cause trouble here and harm lives?" "Haha, I'm not a monster." Loki didn't understand what the word monster meant, but he could guess it wasn't a good word. He added, "I am a god." "God? Another hairy god?" Lin Feng asked, puzzled. Loki didn't understand the meaning, but he could tell that hairy god wasn't a nice title. But why the again? Thor, upon hearing this, understood. Sun Wukong was referring to him. Honestly, hearing this title made him feel somewhat frustrated. He was the prince of Asgard, Odin's eldest son, a true god among the 9 realms. But in Sun Wukong's mouth, he became hairy god, a seemingly inferior term for a god. Thor didn't know what Sun Wukong's era was like. If he knew, he would have known better. Sun Wukong's address to them was fine. Loki stopped thinking about the again, but he still felt annoyed by the title hairy god, and even felt anger. His expression turned cold, and he berated, "What the hell is this god? I'm a noble god. You, a lowly creature, are still stubborn even when death is imminent. I've already ascertained your strength. You're not that strong, or rather, none of you are. You ruined my plan last time, and I'm still dealing with you. Now let's settle the score, both old and new." "Kneel down." Loki pointed his scepter at Lin Feng, trying to make him kneel. "Ho ha ho ha." Lin Feng laughed heartily at this, thinking, "I fooled Loki." However, he was now playing the role of Sun Wukong, so he had to speak from his perspective. "When you wreaked havoc in heaven, I, Sun Wukong, wasn't afraid. Now, you, a bunch of puny soldiers and generals, dare to make me kneel down and die? Kill!" Lin Feng shouted angrily. He was clad in ancient-style battle armor, his fiery red cape fluttering in the wind. Standing in midair, he looked elegant and handsome. At that moment, Lin Feng seemed to truly experience the state of mind of Sun Wukong. As soon as he uttered the word kill, an invisible wave of energy erupted from his body, instantly charging in all directions. The Chitauri soldiers forming the encirclement were struck, their aircraft becoming unstable and swaying backwards. Hiss. Seeing this, Chen Haitian took a deep breath, sensing a sense of unruly defiance. At the same time, he also heard a key point, the havoc in Heavenly Palace. This should be something that happened to Sun Wukong before, right? Chen Haitian thought to himself. Loki sneered, unconcerned with Lin Feng's words. Shrimp soldiers and crab generals? Haha, you don't know what kind of army you're facing, Loki taunted. He pointed his scepter at Lin Feng and said, everyone outside, charge. Kill him. Boom boom boom, the command was given. The Chitauri soldiers, who had formed the encirclement, collectively screamed and rushed towards Lin Feng. Some directly piloted their aircraft in an attempt to ram Lin Feng. Others continuously launched beam attacks at Lin Feng. Bang, bang, ha! Lin Feng's figure flashed by like a fleeting shadow, swift and swift, like a streak of fiery red light, dodging the beam attacks through the air. He swung his golden cudgel, carrying off one Chitauri soldier after another. No Chitauri soldier survived being struck by his golden cudgel. For a moment, the sky was a constant barrage of beam attacks, accompanied by bursts of fire and a constant thud. Some beam attacks even managed to strike the golden shield. But they had no effect, only creating ripples like water, unable to damage it at all. The survivors of the city were stunned by this scene. Holy crap! This is what combat looks like. Isn't it breathtaking? Yet, even computer special effects can't produce something like this. Nonsense. Can Sun Wukong win? I don't know. It feels a bit risky. There are just too many aliens. And did you see? Sun Wukong seems to be constantly dodging the beam attacks. But at this rate, with so many enemies, how long will it take to defeat them? And aliens keep appearing in that space tunnel. Yeah, if this keeps up, Sun Wukong will eventually run out of energy. Huh? People hid in the ruins, talking among themselves, worried that Sun Wukong wouldn't be able to defeat these aliens. Chen Haitian also looked worried about this. But then, it suddenly occurred to him, since Tathagata Buda summoned Sun Wukong, then he should be able to do it, right? Chen Haitian pondered. But he wasn't sure. Loki smiled confidently. Oh, how long will this fight last? It seems that what Scholar Lin Feng said was right. This Sun Wukong is indeed weak. If outnumbered, he'll be defeated. Even if we wear him down, we'll eventually kill him. Loki could almost see Lin Feng being worn down. Boom boom boom, Lin Feng moved with swift speed, like a streak of fiery red light, effortlessly navigating the encirclement of the Chitauri soldiers, taking their lives one after another. However, the Chitauri soldiers also noticed this and began to gather in large numbers, restricting Lin Feng's movement. Soon, an enormous sphere of Chitauri soldiers appeared, and Lin Feng was trapped within it. Seeing this, Chen Haitian's face changed. Chapter 44, Pull out a hair and blow out 10,000 monkeys. Chapter 44 Pull out a hair and blow out 10,000 monkeys, 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster Chapter 44 Pull out a hair and blow out 10,000 monkeys. All the survivors saw this scene, their faces changed drastically, they were terrified, and they dared not believe that Sun Wukong was trapped inside. It's over, Sun Wukong is trapped inside, damn aliens, damn it, woo woo woo, we are finished now. No, I don't believe Sun Wukong is so weak. Yes. Everyone saw the momentum of his flight just now, right? He can't be so weak. There was a lot of discussion. Some people were emotional and didn't believe that Sun Wukong could be so weak. But some people were already desperate. Sun Wukong was already trapped. What hope was there? A feeling of sadness and despair gradually spread. Ha ha ha, Loki laughed heartily, venting his inner joy of revenge. Sun Wukong, you didn't expect this, did you? This is retribution for obstructing my plan. Sun Wukong was trapped among the Chitauri soldiers, bound to die. Next, we must continue the attack on the city. With this thought, Loki looked at the Chitauri soldiers around him and gave an order. Continue to attack this city and the people of Earth until they surrender. Boom boom boom, the Chitauri soldiers, receiving the order, sprang into action again. Chen Haitian, watching this, looked despairing, his eyes drained of life. What else could he do? Sun Wukong was trapped. Buzz buzz buzz, but just then, a series of buzzing sounds began to rise. Chen Haitian heard it and instinctively looked around, searching for the source. But after searching everywhere, there seemed to be no source. Suddenly, he realized something and looked up. He saw the huge sphere of Chitauri soldiers in the sky, vibrating continuously. That buzzing sound was coming from there. Chen Haitian was puzzled. But suddenly, a glimmer of hope and light flashed in his eyes. Could it be? Loki saw it too. A flicker of doubt crossed his mind, but he quickly dismissed it. He sneered, "Are they killing Sun Wukong?" Haha. Hearing this, Chen Haitian shuddered. Is this killing Sun Wukong? He had no idea of Sun Wukong's condition, nor did he know much about the Chitauri army, so he just assumed what Loki said was just a random thought. Instantly, the hope and light in his eyes vanished. Suddenly, something strange happened. The tremors of the sphere grew stronger, and so did the buzzing sound. It felt like a bomb about to explode. And in fact, that description was more or less the same. At that moment, a burst of red light erupted from the cracks in the sphere. The tremors grew stronger, until the frequency was indiscernible even to the naked eye. Bang! Suddenly, with a resounding explosion, the sphere exploded like a bomb. Numerous Chitauri soldiers and aircraft were flung away like shrapnel, flying in all directions. The scene was truly spectacular. The Chitauri soldiers screamed in agony, unable to control their movements. Bang! 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 Some slammed into the golden shield like meteorites. The soldiers were fine, suffering only broken bones and limbs at best. Their aircraft, however, exploded directly. But for the golden shield, their impact only caused ripples like water, otherwise, nothing happened. For a moment, the scene was awe-inspiring. At the center of the sphere, a fiery red flame shone. Then, the flames vanished, revealing the form of Sun Wukong. Seeing this, all the survivors gasped, their eyes filled with shock. In the next instant, everyone reacted, erupting in excited and enthusiastic cheers. Great! Sun Wukong isn't dead. He's still alive, woohoo, great, ha ha ha, I knew he wouldn't die so easily, go Sun Wukong, the survivors shouted. A wave of hope and excitement spread through the crowd, dispelling the previous despair and panic. Even the Chitauri soldiers, who had received orders to continue attacking the city, paused in astonishment at this scene. Chen Haitian also stared at the scene in shock, unable to believe his eyes. The next moment, he realized what was happening and became excited. Great! Sun Wukong is still alive, but suddenly, in the midst of his excitement, a thought struck him. He turned to look at Loki, a strange look in his eyes. He remembered that the culprit had said before that these alien soldiers were killing Sun Wukong. Loki's eyes nearly popped out of his head as he stared at the scene in disbelief. At the same time, he felt a sense of slap in the face. He had thought Sun Wukong was being killed, but unexpectedly, he had broken free. Loki gritted his teeth, his rage boiling. He raised his scepter and shouted angrily, "Everyone outside, come on. Kill him. Kill him." Loki's murderous intent towards Sun Wukong had reached its peak, and he even shouted "kill him" twice. Such a lowly creature dared to provoke him so repeatedly? What a fool. Boom boom boom, a vast army of Chitauri soldiers rushed towards Lin Feng, accompanied by numerous giant mechanical worms. For a moment, the sky was filled with a vast Chitauri army, blackening out the sun as it rushed towards Lin Feng. Loki sneered angrily, "Your strength is inadequate. I have so many Chitauri soldiers at my disposal, I can wear you down." Loki had no other thoughts but this: when Sun Wukong's strength was exhausted, that would be his death. Chen Haitian was horrified, his heart pounding. He hadn't noticed there were so many alien soldiers. Suddenly, a thought struck him, and he turned to look at the azure beam of light in the distance. That space tunnel keeps pouring out alien soldiers. If we don't shut it down, there'll be a constant influx of reinforcements. Sooner or later, Sun Wukong will give up. Damn it. We have to shut that thing down, Chen Haitian fretted. But then he thought, there was no way. Forget getting through now. Even if he could get to the space device, what good would that do? Even a super genius like Tony couldn't shut it down. What else could he do? Lin Feng, seeing the Chitauri army charging at him, showed no fear. He even guessed Loki's intention. He'd been tricked, hoping to win by relying on a series of battles to exhaust his own strength. Lin Feng wanted to laugh, but on the surface, he mimicked Sun Wukong's tone and said, "Come on. You bunch of monsters, let me show you Grandpa Sun's methods." Change, Lin Feng roared, swung his golden cudgel, and then rammed it into the air. But even though it was hitting the air, it made a dull thud sound. Then, he plucked a handful of monkey hair and blew it toward the oncoming Chitauri army. Whoosh, it was merely a puff, but a sudden, violent wind blew. In the gust of wind, the monkey hair flashed a fiery red, transforming into the image of Sun Wukong. And there were so many of them, it was impossible to count them. Seeing this scene, all the survivors were utterly shocked. Chapter 45, Chaos Everywhere, the Chitauri army is like chickens and dogs. Chapter 45, a chaotic battle spreads across the sky, and the Chitauri army is as helpless as chickens and dogs. 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster. Chapter 45, a chaotic battle spreads across the sky, and the Chitauri army is as helpless as chickens and dogs. Hiss, everyone was shocked, looking at the monkey kings everywhere, unable to believe this scene was real. Immediately, they were filled with excitement and excitement. Holy crap! So many monkey kings, clones. These are clones, right? The comics and movies have come true. Awesome, shocking. So shocking, ha ha ha, with so many clones, they should be able to defeat these aliens, right? Discussions raged. Everyone was excited and excited. What is going on? Chen Haitian was also excited. This scene was truly unexpected. With so many clones, they should be able to deal with these alien soldiers, right? Chen Haitian said expectantly. But then he remembered something and said, but the most important thing right now is that space tunnel device. I hope Sun Wukong can find a way to shut it down. Chen Haitian frowned and looked in the direction of the azure beam. That black hole was still emitting a steady stream of alien soldiers. It had to be shut down. Hiss, Ancient One gasped, a look of shock on his face. Among his magic, he also possessed a clone spell. However, he couldn't create so many clones. Furthermore, he sensed that each of Sun Wukong's clones possessed immense combat power. It wasn't simply a matter of creating multiple individuals. This was far more advanced than his magical clones. Sure enough, these people possess a power far beyond magic. But what exactly is this power? Ancient One was deeply curious. He couldn't understand this power, but he could sense its antiquity and mystery, far more profound than magic. So many Sun Wukongs. Thor's face was filled with shock, unable to believe his eyes. He rubbed his eyes and looked again. There were still so many Sun Wukongs. So densely packed, so numerous, it was impossible to count them. Thor was stunned. On the returning aerospace carrier, Nick and Captain America were both stunned by the display on the tablet, unable to believe it. What kind of miracle is this? Captain America exclaimed in amazement. He once again wondered if he hadn't been exhumed yet. Otherwise, why did it feel like the world had become like this after so many decades? Nick didn't know Captain America was doubting reality again. But he, too, felt incredible. At the same time, he felt a sense of relief. He had originally planned to take advantage of China's misfortune, but now it seemed fortunate that he had escaped quickly. If Sun Wukong had used this move, he would have been discovered. He wouldn't have had time to escape then, and he would have mistaken him for an alien and attacked. Loki's face changed drastically, a hint of panic. He hadn't expected Sun Wukong to have such abilities. But then he thought back to what the great scholar Lin Feng had said, and he quickly calmed down. He raised the corner of his mouth and sneered contemptuously, "It's just bluffing, don't resist in vain. I said it before, I have already found out your strength clearly, you are not strong at all, what's the use of you creating so many clones now? They are just vulnerable," Loki said, opening his hands with a look of contempt. But those who saw his reaction were collectively stunned. Guy thought. What is this second prince of Asgard doing? Chen Haitian blinked, confused. But among them, Thor was the most confused. As Loki's brother, Thor thought that Loki had hid his brain. When Lin Feng heard this, he wanted to laugh even more. Loki was completely fooled by himself. But while he thought so, he said, "You're so blind. Sun Wukong, will open your eyes right now." With that, Lin Feng raised his golden cudgel and pointed it at the Chitauri army, shouting, "Kill!" Countless Sun Wukongs, shouting, charged at the Chitauri army. On one side were the Chitauri army, on the other were Lin Feng's clones. For a moment, a chaotic battle ensued. Bang, 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 the Sun Wukong swung their golden cudgels, either blasting aircraft or directly killing the Chitauri soldiers. The Chitauri soldiers, in turn, fired beams of light or rammed their aircraft into the Sun Wukong clones. A dark mass of battle filled the sky, with flashes of fire, and the sounds of bangs, clashes, and screams echoing incessantly. But these were all the screams of the Chitauri soldiers. Moreover, the slain Chitauri soldiers, their limbs, and their destroyed aircraft rained down like rain, all landing on the golden shield. But aside from creating ripples like water, they caused no damage at all. Still, the scene was truly awe-inspiring. Chen Haitian gasped, watching in amazement. Such a shocking and magical scene, he was certain he would never forget it. Meanwhile, several Sun Wukong clones were actually flying straight towards the golden shield. Chen Haitian's pupils constricted. Oh no, this golden shield was created by the Buddha's phantom to ward off the alien soldiers. Would Sun Wukong's clones, now flying towards it, be crashing right into it? But just as he was about to warn them, he saw something startling. Sun Wukong's clones had effortlessly passed through the transparent golden shield, not even colliding with it. What the hell? Chen Haitian's mind froze. But suddenly, he realized that if it was Sun Wukong summoned by Tathagata Buddha, how could the golden shield he had created stop him? Realizing this, he couldn't help but marvel once again at the miraculous power of this ability. It could actually distinguish friend from foe. Loki's eyes nearly popped out at this sight. He'd expected Sun Wukong's clone to collide with him, even somewhat anticipating it. But it didn't happen. Instead it breezed in. Damn it, Loki cursed inwardly. He immediately ordered the Chitauri soldiers to fly away in their aircraft. Sun Wukong's clone must be coming here to confront the Chitauri soldiers in the city. I can't confront him head-on. I have to hide and wait until he's exhausted, Loki thought to himself. Whoosh, Loki flew away. Chen Haitian watched, his eyes filled with confusion. After Sun Wukong's clones entered the golden shield, they scattered, searching for the Chitauri soldiers. A group of people were being chased by several Chitauri soldiers. They were panicked, screaming for help in fear and running around. The Chitauri soldiers were chasing them, screaming and firing beams of light, but they missed them, as if playing a joke. Suddenly, a fiery red light flew over one of the Chitauri soldiers and transformed into a clone of Sun Wukong. Then, with a club, it brought down, with a bang, the Chitauri soldier's head shattered and blood splattered. Then it quickly approached another Chitauri soldier and swept it across, sending it flying like a cannonball into a distant wall, killing it instantly. Then it approached another Chitauri soldier and killed him as well. In the blink of an eye, a single Sun Wukong clone had wiped out several Chitauri soldiers. Chapter 46 Sun Wukong vs. the Giant Mechanical Worm. Chapter 46 Sun Wukong vs. Giant Mechanical Worm, 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster. Chapter 46 Sun Wukong vs. Giant Mechanical Worm. Sun Wukong's clone didn't stop and quickly turned into a stream of fiery red light and flew away. The people who were rescued were stunned and hadn't reacted yet. After a few seconds, they came to their senses and immediately became excited and grateful. Great! We are saved, thank you Sun Wukong. Wow, we are finally saved. Sun Wukong is really amazing. On Chen Haitian's side, the Chitauri soldiers attacked them again. They didn't have much ammunition to begin with, so they could only hide in the house. Damn it, Chen Haitian gritted his teeth as he looked at the aliens in the sky outside who were madly firing beams of attack. Sun Wukong's clones are already here. Once they get here, you're finished. Suddenly, at that moment, a fiery red streak of light flew in, transforming into Sun Wukong's clones. With a few bangs, they dispatched the alien soldiers. Then, they transformed into another streak of light and flew away. Chen Haitian was stunned upon seeing this. Then, excitement immediately grew. Thor was surrounded by a large number of Chitauri soldiers. Although he was powerful with Mjolnir, he was no match for the Chitauri's sheer numbers. Every time Thor killed one, another immediately followed. After a fierce battle, the area around him was littered with Chitauri corpses and flying vehicles. However, the Chitauri continued to charge in droves. Damn it, Thor cursed inwardly. Suddenly, two streaks of light descended, transforming into Sun Wukong's clones. They attacked the Chitauri soldiers, one by one, like fallen leaves swept by an autumn wind, quickly dispatching them. Thor's face was filled with surprise at this scene. He hadn't taken action just now, letting the two Wukong clones take care of everything. Suddenly, Thor remembered something, and he immediately watched the Wukong clones with nervous vigilance. He had encountered Wukong before, but it hadn't been a good encounter. Wukong had thrown away his Mjolnir, so he worried that Wukong would attack him. But he was obviously overthinking it. Wukong's clones didn't even glance at him. They waved their golden cudgel behind them, then leaped into the air and disappeared in a stream of light. Thor felt ignored. Ancient One was protecting the Xiangjiang temple from the Chitauri army. He was doing it with ease, not even struggling. But suddenly, 3 fiery red lights flew in, transforming into 3 Wukong clones. With a few bangs, they dispatched the Chitauri army around them. Then, they all exchanged a glance with Ancient One before disintegrating into streams of light and flying away. With just one glance, Ancient One saw something ancient and mysterious in Sun Wukong's eyes. This something shocked him. Tao, Ancient One muttered uncontrollably. But suddenly, he realized what was happening and immediately became confused. Why did he say that? What was Tao? Beyond these few places, everywhere else in the city, wherever the Chitauri soldiers were, the same scene was playing out. Sun Wukong's clones searched for the Chitauri soldiers in all directions and destroyed them. The survivors cheered and danced excitedly. Go Sun Wukong, woo woo woo, we're saved, damn aliens, you're done, woo woo woo, my mother is dead, I don't have a mother anymore. Bang, bang, bang. In the sky, Sun Wukong's clones and the Chitauri army engaged in a fierce melee. The sound of collisions and the strange cries and screams of the Chitauri soldiers were endless. Lin Feng watched this scene with a smile on his face. Immediately, he looked in another direction. Over there, a pillar of azure light connected to the sky, creating a black hole. A vast stream of Chitauri soldiers flew out of the black hole. We have to go destroy that, Lin Feng said without hesitation. With a loud boom, he soared towards the azure pillar of light. Chen Haitian, observing this, immediately realized what Lin Feng was planning. He grew excited. Sun Wukong is flying over there now. Could he be able to shut down that space tunnel device? Loki, hiding, observed this scene with a startled expression. While he wasn't sure Sun Wukong could shut down the space tunnel device, he didn't dare take any chances. He quickly ordered the Chitauri soldiers to stop Sun Wukong. Boom boom boom, a swarm of Chitauri soldiers and 4 or 5 giant mechanical worms flew towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng shouted, "Can a few of you monsters stop me?" Lin Feng didn't say anything more. With a roar of fury, he raised his golden cudgel and lashed out. With a loud bang, the cudgel struck a Chitauri soldier on the head, instantly killing him. However, the immense force applied to the aircraft, sending it plummeting. Lin Feng tightened his grip on the cudgel and swung it, sending another Chitauri soldier flying with a loud bang. Just then, a giant mechanical worm charged forward. Its size was enormous, ferocious, and terrifying, its entire body imbued with the weight of heavy metal. "Come on, you soulless monster," Lin Feng shouted, breaking through the air with a boom and charging forward. But just as they were about to collide, Lin Feng vanished with a swish, appearing to the right of the mechanical worm. Lin Feng raised his cudgel and slammed it down into the giant worm's waist. With a resounding bang, the mechanical worm was shattered in 2 by Lin Feng. Then, as if losing its momentum, it plummeted downwards. With a loud bang, it slammed into the golden shield, creating massive ripples before exploding and sending flames soaring into the sky. However, it had no effect on the golden shield. Hiss, Chen Haitian gasped at the sight. He had seen the power of this giant mechanical worm before. It could rip a hole through a tall building, collapsing it. Before it, the building was like a pile of tofu. Yet, it was cleaved in 2 by a single blow from Sun Wukong's club. This was truly astonishing. Sure enough, a war beyond human combat capabilities requires those beyond that level to fight, Chen Haitian thought to himself. Loki was also surprised. But he remained calm and confident. Boom, Lin Feng charged at another mechanical worm. But then, a large number of Chitauri soldiers rushed over. Lin Feng gripped his golden cudgel tightly, dispatching each one with his blow. The sound of bangs continued. Soon, Lin Feng had annihilated the surrounding Chitauri soldiers. But just then, a giant mechanical worm flew over and wrapped itself around Lin Feng. It then began to shrink, as if trying to crush him with its iron frame. Seeing this, the survivors' faces changed. Ha ha ha, Loki roared with laughter. He felt that Lin Feng would be unable to escape and would be crushed. But Lin Feng remained calm, mocking him with a sneer, "Monster. Do you think you can subdue me like this?" How? Lin Feng gathered his strength, then roared with a powerful roar. With a bang, the giant mechanical worm's body was torn into several pieces by the aura, and the force sent it flying in all directions. Chapter 47 The Chitauri Mothership Arrives. Chapter 47 The Chitauri Mothership Arrives, 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster Chapter 47 The Chitauri Mothership Arrives. Lin Feng stood in midair, a fiery red light emanating from his body, like a small sun. Everyone was stunned by this scene, especially Loki. Loki couldn't believe his eyes. He's actually fine. The light around Lin Feng vanished. Without pausing, he continued to fly towards the azure beam. Boom boom boom, several more giant mechanical worms and a large number of Chitauri soldiers rushed over, trying to stop Lin Feng from approaching the space tunnel device. But Lin Feng shouted loudly, brandishing his golden cudgel, and met them. Bang boom boom, the golden cudgel swung, destroying each Chitauri soldier with one blow. Even against the giant mechanical worm, 2 or 3 blows would be enough to destroy it. There was no way to stop him. He watched as Lin Feng drew closer and closer to the azure beam. Chen Haitian's excitement grew. If we can shut down that space tunnel device, Sun Wukong will surely take care of the remaining aliens in no time. I hope he succeeds. Chen Haitian was actually unsure. This was a technological matter, and Sun Wukong clearly wasn't one of them. Even a super genius like Tony couldn't shut down this space tunnel device. So, he wasn't sure Lin Feng could actually do it. Seeing this, Loki, previously calm and confident, became nervous and uneasy. He began to sense something was amiss. However, he felt Sun Wukong couldn't shut down the space tunnel device. After all, Thor had just tried to shut it down with force, but it had no effect. Thor had just smashed the space tunnel device with Mjolnir, but the Tesseract's power had deflected it, leaving the device intact. Bang, 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 Lin Feng rushed towards the azure beam. Numerous Chitauri soldiers and giant mechanical worms tried to stop him, but he defeated them all. By this time, the sky was already raining down corpses of Chitauri soldiers, broken limbs, wrecked aircraft, and giant mechanical worms. Boom, 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 but just then, a series of roars drowned out the sounds of battle, echoing in all directions. Everyone heard it and was startled. What is that sound? I don't know, holy crap. It sounds like it's coming from that black hole, it really is. Is there another danger, huh? No way, we just escaped danger, don't worry, Sun Wukong is here, he'll definitely protect us. By this time, the Chitauri soldiers in the city had been largely wiped out by Lin Feng's clones. But the sudden sound from the black hole made everyone nervous again, fearing another danger. However, some felt that Sun Wukong was here. Even if danger came again, he would protect us. Boom, 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 the humming sound grew louder, as if the entire sky was filled with the same sound, several times louder than the sound of a flying plane. Suddenly, someone saw something, their face changing dramatically, as if they'd witnessed something shocking. Everyone, look over there. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone looked over. Suddenly, panic erupted. In the distance, a massive black hole opened up from the azure beam of light, revealing a massive black metallic horn. Everyone was stunned, in disbelief. What is that? I don't know. But it seems like more and more are coming out, holy crap. It looks like an alien spaceship, not just an illusion, it's real, oh my god, holy crap. Is it this big? It's over. With a spaceship this big, we humans are finished, don't be afraid, Sun Wukong is here, the exclamations continued. Everyone's faces were filled with panic and disbelief. Half of the Chitauri spaceship had already been revealed. Even this half was so enormous it felt overwhelming. Everyone was on edge. Hiss, Chen Haitian gasped, his face filled with shock and a wave of unease. Even the spaceships have descended. Is this a last-ditch effort, or is there another way to deal with Sun Wukong? Chen Haitian thought uneasily. However, either scenario was bad. Ha ha ha, Loki, upon seeing this, burst into laughter. The mothership has arrived, Sun Wukong, now I see how you'll die. The mothership was equipped with numerous powerful weapons. If it descended upon Earth, Sun Wukong would undoubtedly die, and the Earth would be destroyed. Boom boom boom, most of the Chitauri spaceships descended. Seeing this, Lin Feng thought to himself, even the motherships have descended? Okay, watch me smash you to pieces, Lin Feng thought so. But he was now playing Sun Wukong, so he had to speak from his perspective. He shouted angrily, hey! Another soulless monster has arrived. Let me show you my power. With that, Lin Feng roared, his entire body radiating a fiery red light, his cloak rustling behind him. Then, with a bang, he burst through the air, hurtling towards the Chitauri spaceship at breakneck speed. As he flew, he transformed into a streak of fiery red light, emitting a continuous fiery aura. The Chitauri soldiers and giant mechanical worms ahead of him attempted to intercept him. But as they approached, They were instantly blasted to death by the fiery red aura he emitted. Bang, 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 Lin Feng transformed into a stream of light, soaring at breakneck speed. The explosions from the Chitauri army followed in a continuous line. Everyone watching this scene was collectively stunned. At the same time, they understood Lin Feng's intention. He was going to destroy the spaceship. Chen Haitian's heart was filled with anxiety. He stared at the scene intently, not daring to blink. Loki was also extremely nervous, his hands sweating as he gripped his scepter. Bang! The next moment, Lin Feng transformed into a stream of light, crashing into the azure beam and plunging forcefully into the spaceship, emitting a deafening roar. Crash! Crash! Everyone was stunned, unable to believe their eyes. Immediately, flames began to erupt from all over the spaceship, as if its interior was being destroyed. Bang! 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 Immediately, explosions rang out. Multiple parts of the spaceship were ablaze. Seeing this, everyone came to their senses and immediately danced with joy. Ha ha ha! Sun Wukong is so powerful. Destroy. Destroy as hard as you can. That just scared me. I told you, Sun Wukong would definitely protect us. Ha ha ha! A spaceship is useless. It's nothing compared to absolute power. Everyone excitedly discussed it. But suddenly, with a bang, an explosion louder than the previous ones rang out, and a huge piece of the ship was blown away. Flames shot up into the sky, revealing the interior of the spaceship. But the flames were so blazing that nothing could be seen clearly. However, the spaceship tilted and seemed to be about to collapse. But half of it was still in the universe. Seeing this scene, everyone's mouths opened wide, their faces full of surprise. Oh my god! This spaceship looks like it's going to collapse. It really is. Ha ha ha! Sun Wukong is so powerful. He actually caused such a huge damage. Incredible. This is simply incredible. Oh my god, is this spaceship really going to collapse? No way, isn't half of it still on the other side of the black hole? Chapter 48, the space battleship hits the golden shield, the situation is critical. Chapter 48, the battleship collided with a golden shield, the situation was critical. 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster. Chapter 48, the battleship collided with a golden shield, the situation was critical. Bang! Suddenly, a fiery red light shot out from beneath the battleship, hurtling towards the space tunnel device below at breakneck speed. Seeing this movement, the chattering crowd fell silent, stunned. For a moment, no one could react. Chen Haitian was also stunned. But the next second, he reacted, a look of surprise in his eyes. Is he going to shut down the space tunnel device? But how is he going to do it? Chen Haitian wondered. Suddenly, he realized something, gasped, and a look of surprise crossed his face. Loki, stunned by the sight of Lin Feng's powerful destruction of the battleship, was stunned and terrified. Suddenly, he saw the scene before him, and his eyes widened in shock again. What is he trying to do? Thor also gasped, realizing something. Boom boom boom, a fiery red light shot down from above, reaching the top of the space tunnel device and transforming back into Lin Feng. Lin Feng roared, raised his golden cudgel, and slammed it down. Bang! A resounding explosion. The space tunnel device instantly exploded, and simultaneously, a wave of azure air rapidly spread in all directions. A sonic boom echoed as it spread. Fragments of the space tunnel device were also scattered in all directions along with the azure air. The scene was awe-inspiring. Everyone was stunned by this scene, their minds shutting down. At that moment, it felt as if the entire world had fallen silent. A few seconds later, as the space tunnel device was destroyed, the azure light column vanished. The black hole had lost its propulsion power and was gradually shrinking. As it shrank, the Chitauri spaceship was squeezed, causing a continuous rumbling noise. Finally, with a loud bang, the spaceship suddenly broke apart, and flames shot up into the sky. The spaceships in the other part of space were invisible due to the black hole blocking the view, and their situation was unknown. However, in the part of the spaceships on Earth, flames erupted from every part, and explosions could be seen and heard. Meanwhile, numerous Chitauri soldiers leaped from the spaceships, attempting to escape. Boom, 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 the flaming half of the spaceship plummeted downward. Although only half, it was still immense, obscuring the sky as it fell. In the city, the survivors, upon witnessing the scene, were horrified and disoriented. Some were so frightened that they collapsed to the ground, faces filled with terror and despair. It's over, run for your lives, save us, Someone save us, run. Run. Run, where the hell can we escape to with a spaceship this big? Exactly, then what should we do? Don't panic, don't we have that golden transparent light shield created by the phantom above us? Maybe it can block the impact of this spaceship, huh? Can it block it? Yes, can it? It's only half a spaceship, but it's huge. Panic and anxiety spread through the crowd. However, there were still some people who believed that this golden transparent light shield should be able to block the impact of the falling half of the spaceship. Chen Haitian took a breath, his face full of panic and anxiety. He had not expected this to happen. But suddenly, a thought struck him, and he said, I wonder if this transparent golden shield can block it. If the golden shield couldn't stop it, then a massive spaceship would crash down, completely destroying Hong Kong City, and all survivors would perish. Moreover, the sheer force of the impact could trigger tsunamis, earthquakes, and other disasters, impacting the mainland. In short, the consequences would be dire. Loki's pupils shrank, and his face paled. His mind was blank, his mind a blank, filled with a single thought, it's all over. With a massive spaceship crashing down, he wouldn't even have anywhere to hide. Aboard the aerospace carrier, Nick and Captain America were equally shocked and shaken by the scene. They felt that Hong Kong City was doomed. And, once again, they realized that their earlier decision to return home was a clear decision, otherwise, it would have been too dangerous. Boom, 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 as everyone tensed, the sound of the crashing spaceship grew louder and closer. Finally, with a loud bang, far louder than any other sound in the world, the spaceship crashed down without a trace, crashing down onto the golden shield. Everyone instinctively closed their eyes, afraid to watch the aftermath. All they could hear was the roar of massive explosions and the roar of flames. It was unknown how much time had passed. Suddenly, someone shouted, "Holy crap! Look!" This remark set off a chain reaction, and everyone looked up at the sky. But their faces immediately dropped in disbelief at what they saw. The golden, transparent shield in the sky remained intact. Half of the alien spaceship had crashed into the shield, creating only ripples. Instead, the immense force of the impact had left the ship in even greater disarray, shattering it into a horrific state. Then, half of the ship began to slide down the slope of the golden shield. Finally, with a resounding roar, it sank into the sea. Perhaps in years to come, this ship will surpass the Titanic in fame. The survivors watched, stunned and incredulous. It took them a few seconds to react, then they burst into cheers and dances of joy. Ha ha ha. It's okay. It's okay. Amazing. This is truly amazing. Holy crap, that really scared me. I thought it was over. Ha ha ha. It's okay. Wow, wow, great. I survived. A chorus of enthusiastic and excited voices filled the air. Some were overjoyed, some hugged each other, tears welling in their eyes at having escaped death, and some danced with joy. But others, sobbing, dug through the rubble, calling out the names of their loved ones buried beneath. Chen Haitian's face was filled with emotion, tears streaming down his face, his fists clenched. I survived. Chen Haitian hadn't expected the golden light shield to withstand the impact of the space battleship intact. He had also never expected Lin Feng's violent smashing of the space tunnel device. This also shocked him. Lin Feng actually used this method to shut down the space tunnel device. Thor was completely stunned. Then, he reacted and took a breath. Incredible, this golden light shield actually blocked it. Just at that moment, he thought in his mind that if the golden light shield broke, he would use Mjolnir to quickly leave here. And he just smashed the thing with one stick, but I was bounced away by it. How strong is he? Thor said to himself. Loki was stunned, his mind blank. It took him a long time to come back to his senses. He actually felt a sense of relief in his heart. Immediately, he quickly shook his head and didn't think about it. He looked up at the Monkey King in the sky again. At this moment, he finally realized something and said in surprise, "Scholar Lin Feng, the information is wrong. This Monkey King is very powerful. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels." Chapter 49, Resurrect Them All. Chapter 49 Resurrect Them All, 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster Chapter 49 Resurrect Them All. Lin Feng stood on the air, the fiery red cloak behind him fluttering in the wind, like a dancing flame. Solved, Lin Feng raised the corner of his mouth. At this moment, he remembered something and looked in a certain direction. After a pause, he said in the tone of Sun Wukong, "There's still a monster. I almost forgot about it. How can I let you escape?" After that, Lin Feng held the golden hoop in his left hand, then raised his right hand and grasped the air. A stick with golden light appeared out of thin air. Lin Feng threw it lightly in the direction he had just looked at. Swoosh, the golden stick flew away at a high speed. It soon disappeared. Seeing this scene, everyone was shocked. Did an alien escape? At this moment, as the space battleship was destroyed, the surviving Chitauri soldiers and the giant mechanical worm seemed to be affected by something. The former's life force instantly vanished, while the latter seemed to lose its power. Both fell from the sky. Bang, 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 like hail, they slammed into the golden light shield with a dull thud, sending ripples through the air. Soon, the sky was empty of Chitauri soldiers, leaving only Sun Wukong's clones. Seeing this, Lin Feng reached out and grabbed at the clones. Instantly, all of Sun Wukong's clones flew towards them, including those inside the golden light shield. As they flew, they transformed back into monkey hair and flew into Lin Feng's hands. Lin Feng gathered the monkey hair. The survivors looked up at the sky. The sky was clear and the sun was shining brightly, as if everything that had just happened was just an illusion. But the surrounding rubble and devastation, with corpses one after another, seemed to prove that it was not an illusion. For some, the joy of surviving the disaster quickly faded, and they began mourning the dead. Others, whose loved ones had died, wailed uncontrollably. Others, weeping, dug through the rubble, trying to dig out their loved ones. Children, their parents dead, stood by the roadside, weeping uncontrollably. A wave of sadness and grief spread throughout the city. After Chen Haitian's elation faded, he too realized this. His face was filled with sorrow, but there was nothing he could do. After all, the dead cannot be brought back to life. This disaster is truly immense. Xiangjiang City is essentially destroyed, Chen Haitian muttered to himself. Lin Feng gazed at the devastated city below and heard the voices of the people within. He moved, flying towards the shadowy figure of Tathagata Buddha, arriving before it. The survivors were stunned by this scene. What was Sun Wukong going to do? Curious and puzzled, they all stared. Lin Feng stared at the enormous shadowy figure of Tathagata Buddha before him. He could directly control the phantom of the Tathagata Buddha. However, he was currently impersonating Sun Wukong. Furthermore, Sun Wukong and the Tathagata Buddha were presented to the world as two separate characters. Therefore, he had to speak from Sun Wukong's perspective. He hefted his golden cudgel onto his shoulder and explained the situation. Tathagata Buddha, I've already vanquished all the monsters, but I can't do anything about the dead mortals. Please, be kind and resurrect them all. Upon hearing this, the survivors were collectively shocked. What? They looked at the Tathagata Buddha's phantom. From Lin Feng's words, they knew this golden figure was called the Tathagata Buddha. But could he really resurrect the dead? Everyone was in disbelief and restless. Chen Haitian stared at the Tathagata Buddha's phantom in shock. He didn't quite believe it either. But Sun Wukong had said so. Long after Lin Feng finished speaking, the survivors stared at the phantom in silence, feeling nervous and excited, yet also a little anxious, worried that such a thing was impossible. As expected, the golden shadow remained silent. Everyone began to despair. Really, how could such a thing be possible? They were dead, there was no way they could be resurrected. But just then, the Tathagata Buddha finally spoke. Amitabha. You monkey, don't worry, I will resurrect them, thank you, Lin Feng said with a smile. Actually, he had also controlled the Tathagata Buddha's shadowy voice just now. But now, in front of the world, he had to pretend it was Sun Wukong talking to the Tathagata Buddha. But upon hearing the conversation, the survivors were stunned, unable to believe their ears. They agreed, holy crap, is this really possible? I don't know, outrageous, people were buzzing. Resurrecting the dead was unbelievable. As the Tathagata Buddha's shadowy voice finished its words, waves of Buddhist chanting emanated, like countless voices chanting sutras, quickly spreading in all directions. For a moment, the entire world was filled with a Buddhist chanting. Upon hearing this Buddhist chant, people felt a sudden sense of peace and tranquility. Their emotions, which had been surging, were soothed. What's that sound? Yes, it's calming, Yeah, it also gives me a pleasant feeling. Everyone, look up at the sky. The golden shield is about to disappear." As these words were spoken, everyone looked to the sky. They saw the golden shield grow increasingly transparent, until it completely vanished, along with the swastika. After the golden shield vanished, lotus flowers began to bloom on the devastated city ground. These lotus flowers bloomed rapidly, vibrant with life. And after blooming, tiny specks of golden light emanated from the flowers, drifting in all directions. Under the Buddhist chant, the lotus flowers bloomed in ever-increasing numbers, and the tiny specks of golden light grew in number. They drifted across the ruined city. On the ground, a corpse lay, and tiny specks of golden light fell upon it. The wounds on the corpse healed at a visible speed, until they were completely healed. After a few seconds, the corpse stirred, finally lifting itself up with its hands. I'm not dead? What the hell is going on? He didn't understand. He remembered being dead. And the scene was playing out across the city. Some were buried beneath the rubble. But with a boom, giant lotus flowers sprouted from the ruins, their buds opening to reveal the very people buried within. They stared in amazement, wondering what had happened. They were clearly dead, so how could they still be alive? Others were injured, but not dead. But after being struck by tiny specks of golden light, their wounds visibly healed. In seconds, they healed, leaving no scars. The dead had been resurrected. After those around them explained the situation, they understood what had happened. They hugged their loved ones and wept with joy. Some hugged their children, parents, and so on. For a moment, they were immersed in the joy of their loved ones' return to life. Yet, they were also filled with shock. The dead could actually be resurrected. It was no wonder. They knew nothing of myths and legends, and naturally, they had no idea of the possibility of resurrection from the dead, nor did they understand the significance of the Tathagata Buddha. After sharing their excitement and joy with their loved ones, they all knelt before the Buddha's shadow, kowtowed, and passionately expressed their gratitude. "Thank you, Sun Wukong. Thank you, Tathagata Buddha. Thank you, Sun Wukong. Thank you, Tathagata Buddha." Chapter 50, Just Pretend and Leave. Chapter 50, Show Off and Leave, 2024-08-19 Author, Good Monster. Chapter 50, Show Off and Leave. The cries of gratitude grew louder and louder. Chen Haitian was also overwhelmed with excitement. He saw that all the soldiers who had just died had been resurrected. Incomprehensible, absolutely incomprehensible. Such a thing could be done. What was it like in ancient times? At this moment, Chen Haitian was extremely curious, wanting to know what the ancient times were like. Why was Sun Wukong so powerful? Why could the Buddha even do such a thing? Thor stared at his surroundings in amazement. People knelt on the ground, thanking the shadowy figures of Sun Wukong and the Buddha. He had just witnessed with his own eyes that after being sprinkled with golden light, the wounds of the dead people were visibly healed, and they stood up. Some even had their arms broken, but they grew back, and they were resurrected. Incredible. Thor couldn't help but shake his head in amazement. Hong Kong Temple. Ancient One's face was filled with shock, unable to believe such a thing. But the resurrected people in the city were indirectly telling him that all this was real. It took him a long while to come to his senses and accept this. They can even do this. It seems I underestimated the power they possess. What kind of power is this? Ancient One became increasingly curious about the power wielded by Sun Wukong and Tathagata Buddha. At the same time, a word came to his mind. Tao. What is this Tao? Ancient One muttered to himself. This was a word he had inexplicably grasped when he saw Lin Feng's clone. Tony woke up. After taking in his surroundings, he sat up abruptly. Where am I? He wondered. Suddenly, he remembered his situation. His heart tightened, and he quickly glanced out the window. But there was no alien in sight. Instead, the sun was shining, and the air seemed peaceful. Tony was puzzled. What was going on? Suddenly, a thought struck him, and he glanced at his arm. He was immediately startled. The palladium in his arm's veins had vanished. How could this happen? The symptoms of palladium poisoning have disappeared, Tony exclaimed in disbelief. He knew his physical condition at the time well. Severe palladium poisoning had damaged his internal organs, and his blood vessels had turned black. He knew there was no way he could be saved. But now his blood vessels were back to normal. And he felt no discomfort at all. This can't be Chinese medical treatment. There's no such advanced medical treatment. So, what happened while I was unconscious? Tony, a genius, quickly figured out the problem. But he couldn't understand the situation. How could he be fine? This was too unbelievable. Loki watched the scene in disbelief. The dead earthlings around him had all been resurrected. It was beyond his comprehension. And it also made him even more certain that Scholar Lin Feng's information was wrong. Suddenly, he saw something, his eyes lit up, and he rushed over to pick it up. It was the Tesseract. Great! That's exactly what I was looking for, Loki exclaimed excitedly. Lin Feng had previously smashed the space tunnel device, sending fragments and other debris flying in all directions along with the blue airwaves. This included the cosmic cube. He hadn't expected Loki to pick it up. Loki no longer had any intention of attacking. He was now restless and wanted only to escape. If some Wukong discovered him, he would be doomed. Without hesitation, he quickly harnessed the power of the cosmic cube and vanished from the scene. Cheers of gratitude grew in the city. Lin Feng smiled broadly. Then, he noticed Loki had escaped using the cosmic cube. I didn't expect this kid would pick it up, Lin Feng pondered for a moment. Then, he stopped thinking about it. After all, Loki would be involved in some of the upcoming events, and since he had tricked him into a complete mess, keeping him around might be more interesting. Then, a system notification chimed in. Ling. Congratulations, Master, for completing the hero mission. Shock points reward being calculated. Calculation completed. Congratulations, Master, for receiving 100,000 shock points. 100,000 shock points. Lin Feng was startled. He actually got so much from this hero mission? Last time, I think he only got 5,000 shock points, right? But on second thought, it made sense. This time, the crisis was far greater than last time, and the scene was even more spectacular. There were also the characters of Sun Wukong and Tathagata Buda, and Tathagata Buda even performed a stunning act of resurrection. So, it was normal to get so much shock points. If there weren't so many, maybe the system had withheld them. Lin Feng's thoughts wandered for a moment, but he quickly recovered. With so much shock points, I should buy Erlang Shen's character card, right? When Lin Feng was writing the Sun Wukong story, he had already decided that Erlang Shen would be the next character to play. After all, if he was bringing Chinese mythology back to Earth, it was natural to play other mythological characters as well. At this moment, the system voice sounded again. Ling. Congratulations, Master, for completing the first stage of the mission. The system has been successfully upgraded and entered the second stage. Open points to redeem all functions of the mall. System upgraded. Lin Feng was delighted, but he didn't rush to check it out now. He decided to study it after returning. After all, it was all over, and it would be a bit awkward if Sun Wukong and Tathagata Buda were still here. With this thought in mind, Lin Feng controlled the phantom of the Tathagata Buda and said, Amitabha. This matter is concluded, and it is time for me to depart. I have slept for ages, and this awakening is only a brief one. I will slumber again for a while. However, the passage of time, over the endless years, those of my generation have already passed their days. Others will awaken next. You humans carry the blood of our ancient ancestors. You must be pious and peaceful, and avoid disputes. Perhaps, in the future, we will regain our former glory. Amitabha, the Tathagata Buddha's phantom chanted a Buddhist name, and the huge shadow suddenly dispersed, transforming into countless stars of golden light, dissipating into the air. The scene was magnificent and beautiful. But the people in the city were stunned when they heard these words. What do you mean? Is Tathagata Buddha going to fall asleep again? No way. What should we do if our Earth is in danger again? Fuck, how can there be so many dangers? Do you think things like today happen every day? That's right. Besides, didn't Tathagata Buddha say that other characters will wake up? Fuck. I suddenly thought of one thing. Tathagata Buddha said that other characters will wake up. Do you remember that someone said this before? Who? Lin Feng. Professor Lin, hiss. I remember, it seems that this really happened. Yes. How did he know? End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.